Okay, it's 6 o'clock. Let's go. Welcome everyone to the Land Use Board meeting of Monday, April the 4th, 2022. We will start by standing and doing our flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by postings on the bulletin board in the entrance hall of the Beach Haven Municipal Building and mailing the same to the Beach Haven Times and the Asbury Park Press. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision for each individual application. Decorum appropriate to judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. Roll call, Mrs. Eddles?
Here.
Mr. Herensky? Mrs. Lenhart?
Here.
Mr. Muha? Mr. Persano?
Here.
Mr. Stevens?
Here.
Mrs. Baxter?
Here.
Mr. Meadow? Mrs. Ballmiller?
Here.
Mr. Jenna?
Here.
Mr. Tinquist?
Here.
Mr. Balbo?
Here.
And Mr. Lafredo? Okay.
Are you able to pick them up and when they get on later? Lauren?
I do see them hopping in from the waiting room.
Okay, all right. All right, new business. We have approval of the minutes. Did everybody get to chance to read the minutes from March 7th? If they did, can I have a motion to approve?
I so approve, Penny.
Second,
I'll second those, Bonnie.
thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes approved.
Approval of the bills. Did everybody get a chance to see the bills? And I have a motion to approve the bills.
Motion to approve.
Second, Penny.
Thank you.
Mrs. Eddles?
Yes.
Mrs. Lenhart?
Yes,
Mr. Persano?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mrs. Baxter?
Yes.
Mrs. Ballmiller?
Yes.
Mr. Jenna?
Yes.
Mr. Tinquist?
Yes.
And Mr. Balbo?
Yes.
Bills approved.
all right, next on the agenda is the escrow returns, application 2021-16. It's 107 North Bay Avenue in the amount of $673.80. And application 2020-01, 2209 West Avenue requests $58 to be returned. Can I have a motion to approve the return request?
I so move, Penny.
Second, Jamie.
Thank you.
Mrs. Eddles?
Yes.
Mrs. Lenhart?
Yes,
Mr. Persano?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
Yes.
Mrs. Baxter?
Yes.
Mrs. Ballmiller?
Yes.
Mr. Jenna?
Yes.
Mr. Tinquist?
Yes.
And Mr. Balbo?
Yes.
Escrow return request approved.
thank you. The next item is a three-person review. The dock and Clam bar, I think, was approved last meeting, so we'll just say it was approved. The Holiday Snack Bar at 401 Center Street was approved to expand their menu and open for breakfast. They have been approved to operate from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. They will not be allowed to have outside dining for breakfast before 9 a.m. And the Queen City Crust at 1002 North Bay Avenue was approved to operate a cafe from 8 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. that sells artisan bread, sandwiches, and pizzas. Okay, going to old business, resolution 2022-03, 400 Leeward Avenue. Did everybody get a chance to read that resolution? That was the one about the sidewalks. If they did, could I have a motion to approve?
So moved, Jamie.
Second, Penny.
Thank you.
All right, Mrs. Baxter,
Yes.
Mrs. Ballmiller,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens,
Yes.
Mrs. Eddles,
Yes.
Mrs. Lenhard,
Yes.
and Mr. Tinquist.
Yes.
Resolution approved.
Resolution 2022-04, 405 Amber Street. That was the subdivision of a lot. Did everybody get a chance to read that? We put we got rid of the flat roof. We moved the AC back to the back. We shrank the garage doors. That one. Could I have a motion to approve?
So move, Penny.
Second?
Second, Jamie.
Thank you.
Mrs. Baxter,
Yes.
Mrs. Ballmiller,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens,
Yes.
Mr. Persano,
Yes.
Mrs. Eddles,
Yes.
Mrs. Lenhard,
Yes.
and Mr. Tinquist.
Yes.
Resolution approved.
All right, moving along to the public hearings tonight. The first application, 2022-02, is going to be carried to next meeting. There was a problem with their application, so they're moving to next month. So we will,
Bonnie, if I
Pardon?
could, I got a letter from Rich Wasowski this afternoon. He and I were speaking on this morning. Apparently, when the notices went out, it should have said 229 11th Street. It said 220. And that was in the paper and the notices to neighbors within 200 feet. So he's asking to have it put on for May 2nd. He's going to renotice. So if there's anybody there tonight out in public that wants to talk about this, it's going to be scheduled, as the board says okay to this motion. It's going to be rescheduled for May 2nd, and Mr. Vasasi is going to renotice and republish the notice. But there was an error with the notice, and as we know, notice is jurisdictional. If it's a defective notice, we don't have jurisdiction to hear it. So Bonnie should have a motion to accept his letter, carry to May 2nd.
do you have this letter, Bob? I can't hear you. You need to talk up a little bit.
Okay, sure. Here's his letter. It's addressed to Lauren. It has come to my attention that there was a typographical error in the street address for the applicant and the notice of publication and the letters to property owners. What read as 220 11th Street should have been 229 11th Street. It is respectfully requested that the application be carried to May 2nd meeting with new notifications to be sent out on the matter. Thank you for your courtesies and attention. So he's going to do the noticing. I'll still announce it tonight, but the board should have a motion on this and accept it. and vote on
Okay.
it.
All right, could I have a motion to accept his letter and carry his application to May 2nd of this year?
I so move, Penny.
I'll second Bonnie, Jamie.
Thank you.
Ms. Baxter,
Yes.
Ms. Ballmiller,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens,
Yes.
Mr. Persano,
Yes.
Mrs. Eddles,
Yes.
Ms. Lenhard,
Yes.
Mr. Jenna,
Yes.
Mr. Tinquist,
Yes.
and Mr. Balbo.
Yes.
This application will be carried.
Okay. So moving along to our first application this evening is 2022-05, the Singer application, which is 1609 South Bay Avenue, Block 61, Lot 3.01. The property contains a single-family dwelling and a two-family dwelling. The applicant is appealing the decision made by the Beach Haven zoning officer that the duplex on the property was pre-existing non-conforming use and structure pursuant to section 212-7 and D of the Borough of Beach Haven zoning ordinance. The zoning officer determined that the duplex was not pre-existing, non-conforming use and structure. The applicant believes that the decision of the prior zoning officer is an error. In addition, the applicant disputes the prior zoning officer's assertion that the applicants agreed to convert the two-family dwelling structure to a single-family structure because it was an illegal structure. Okay, who's representing?
Madam Chair, Nick Talbaki on behalf of the Singers.
Okay. You may start.
I just want to announce too, we also have Vivian Washburn present for the Beach Haven zoning office.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Madam Chair, how many voting members do we have tonight? I wasn't able to keep count.
I think we have 10, don't we?
Yes, we do.
One,
So
two,
there'll be 9 voting members eligible.
yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
All right, thank you. I'd like to first introduce Mr. and Mrs. Singer, Brian Singer and Melissa Singer. Brian, just for the record, we're going to swear you in. I don't know if Mrs. Singer is going to testify, but we're going to swear you in. Is it appropriate now, Madam Chair, to swear him in?
Yes,
Yes, let me swear in
Alright.
both of them, and that way, if they both testify, it's not an issue. So would you both please raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth?
Yes.
Okay, and your name and address, please.
Brian Singer, 1609 South Bay Ave, Beach Haven, New Jersey.
Melissa Singer, 209 South Bay Ave, Beach Haven, New Jersey.
While we're at it, let me just
No.
swear in my board engineer while we're doing this. Frank, do you mind? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth?
Yes.
Thank you, Frank. Go ahead.
Do I need to be sworn in
Uh,
for the
oh,
zoning
you-
office?
Yeah, let me swear you in now at this point, so please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth?
I do.
And your name and your business
Vivienne P.
address
Washburn, the business address is 300 Ingleside Avenue in Beach Haven.
and your
Zoning
position with the
department.
borough zoning?
Assistant to the zoning officer.
Thank you.
okay,
Go ahead, sir.
All right, thank you. So before we start, Mr. and Mrs. Singer actually live in New York. They have this home in Beach Haven. What's your occupation, Brian?
I'm a New York City fireman for 28 years.
And Mrs. Singer?
I'm a school nurse.
And you bought this property because you want to be able to summer in Beach Haven and maybe one day permanently relocate here?
Correct.
All right. You first started looking to purchase this property in 2015, is that correct?
Yes.
And what happened with that transaction?
Well, I looked around for a couple properties, 2015. Real estate agent Bob Palestri found this property for us, went down and looked at it, and he had a couple of people back out, but this was in our price range.
Okay. And the property was listed as, and this is in our materials we submitted, a single family at the front and a duplex in the rear.
Correct.
And when you physically looked at the property, did it appear to have 3 units in 2015?
Yes.
And could you describe the back building is where the 2 units were located, correct?
Yes.
And did the upstairs, there was a kitchen and it's more of a studio, correct?
It was a studio apartment, full kitchen, full bath, tub, shower, and then a
What was
studio.
downstairs?
Downstairs was 2 bedrooms, downstairs full kitchen, 1 bath, all older, pickwood pine on the walls, 1950s, still looks 1950s.
All right. So the kitchen upstairs does not look new to you?
No, 1950s.
All right. Now, how do you enter the second unit upstairs?
There's an exterior deck, the only entrance. There is no interior stairs.
To your knowledge, does it appear there ever was an interior set of stairs?
No, they're based on the layout and from the pictures that I have from 1950s on, there never was interior stairs and never could be with the layout that's there.
So when you looked at the property in 2015, it matched what was set forth in the real estate listing?
Yes.
Okay.
Exterior stair entrance was to get to the second floor.
Now, an issue hasn't arisen. It was in the denial of our application that you had signed a piece of paper that said that you would deconvert to single family. First of all, it's important to state that 2015 transaction never occurred, right?
Yes, we backed out of withdrew from the contract in October of 2015.
But why did you provide a letter to the zoning office that you would deconvert the back building to single family?
So because both houses are low flood elevation, was under the impression that I had to raise these houses. So I researched federal grants to be able to raise the houses. Went in, met with the building department, Bill Greer. Bill Greer happens to be somebody I know through another fireman, a lieutenant who works in the next firehouse next to me. His nephew, Bobby Greer, works with me. So went in and spoke to Bill, went over, I'm looking for grants. And he said, if we go forward with a grant, the rear house would have to be converted back to a single-family house. So kept looking for it and thought I could get a federal grant to raise both houses.
So you provided that letter only for the purpose of trying to get a grant, federal grant?
Correct, trying to get a federal grant.
And this-
There was federal grants out there.
Mhm.
Bill Greer was really helpful trying to get us to get this grant, based on, said I can't afford to raise these houses. If I don't get federal money or grant money, we can't afford to raise these houses. We're not in that financial position.
All right, so that deal fell through in 2015, correct?
Yes, we couldn't get any grants, and so, and the flood insurance was $14,000. So that was we walked away in end of October of 2015.
All right, fast forward to 2017. You now make a new offer to purchase and actually enter into an agreement of sale. Is that correct?
Correct. Bob Palestri, the real estate agent, said that this house is still on the market, and the owners were willing to clean it up and do repairs if we increased our offer by $25,000 to get back into it. So we then went into contract, increased our offer by $25,000 to go into contract.
Did you apply now for a different grant to raise the house?
Yes. Now, Beach Haven Borough had their own grants, 10 of them to be set up. But what was an important part of that is Bob Palestri and G. Anderson Insurance then got involved. We were able to reduce the flood insurance from $14,000 to just over $3,000 by having each house have separate flood insurance policies. So that brought us back into the game, and there was nothing else out there in the price range that we could afford.
And you learned that you did not actually require to raise the house.
We're not required to raise the house. I researched more and looked around. We weren't required to raise it. The flood insurance, if it keeps going up, that was the issue for us. So,
And you closed title in 2018, correct?
yes, we were closing in July of 2017, but there was a death. One of the parties and the owners, there was 4 of them. One of them passed away, so it got delayed. We did apply for a Beach Haven. The Beach Haven Borough allowed us to apply for the house raising, but we weren't in the top 10. The front house, the small bungalow, was number 14, and the rear house was number 32. So we didn't make the top 10, so weren't able to get any grants.
So when you closed title, in your opinion, you had a single family in the front and a duplex in the rear.
Yes, as it's always been since 1950. You can look at it, and it shows that it's
Okay.
night.
And nothing to your knowledge indicates that that was not a duplex in the back. In other words, the physical condition is such that you testified that the kitchen is old.
Both kitchens are 1950s.
And, okay.
The only thing new is appliances.
And you've also, okay, fair enough. And you've also testified that there's no internal staircase. How do you know that?
There's no internal staircase. For the framing, there's a couple spots that some water damage, and down on the first floor to the second. So that sheetrock came out, and the original joists, 2x8 joists, are still there. There was no renovation that if they had an interior stair, there'd be a renovation, that there'd be headers in place to show that it goes up to the second floor. None of that exists. It's the original framing from 1950. So you can see it's always been an exterior entrance, never an interior entrance.
So we submitted a number of proofs, and I'm aware Joanne Talon had some other proofs. The municipal records are not crystal clear on this. In some instances, it does say it's a single family in the back, but others it says it's a duplex. I also point out that in 2015, the borough zoning officer wanted the Singers to agree to deconvert it. Now, if it was illegal, there's no reason to ask them to sign something to deconvert it. You just send a notice, say you have an illegal duplex, deconvert it. That wasn't done. So in 2015, the borough, at least the zoning officer, thought this was a duplex. Now, I'm aware that there was a prior planning board or land use board resolution for a subdivision, which says 2 single families. I can't explain that other than to say that land use resolutions occasionally have an error in them, and sometimes the applicants don't pick it up because the applicants don't review it carefully. I've been doing this for almost 33 years, and I can certainly point out errors that occur from time to time. Not often. I know this is a very good board, but that's the only thing I can think of, because come 2015, 5 years after that application, by the way, that application was to subdivide, to provide access. It had nothing to do with what the uses were. I also point out that in then and now, the zoning allows for duplexes. The variance that was needed back in that hearing, as pointed out in Mr. Little's report, is a variance to allow 2 principal uses on 1 lot. That variance was granted, but the use itself, duplex, permitted. It was having 2 principal structures that was not permitted, which by variance is now permitted. So I like to just go through, and I don't want to belabor, and we're going to address Mr. Little's letter in a moment, but in our Exhibit A of our materials, which I assume everybody has, it says there are 2 units and 2 kitchens for the rear unit. Now, there's no date. It says 7/7. You personally went to try to get these records, right, Brian?
I went and they couldn't give me the exact date. It was a borough, Beach Haven borough-wide reassessment. And you'll see that I was told it was 1983, but they couldn't give me a definitive time frame on it. And that person went through the property, and it has 9 rooms, 2 kitchens, 3 bedrooms, 3 baths, exactly as it is today. Nothing has changed
Now,
in that.
Yeah. So when
room total.
when you're looking at that Exhibit A, on the right side, it says 2 units, and also on the right side, it has 2 kitchens. On the left side, it does say 1 kitchen. Can't explain that, but it says what it says. Exhibit B is in our footnote. That says 2 units, but 1 kitchen. Again, can't explain that, but it does say 2 units. Exhibit C is the realtor's listing. Now, realtors, in my experience, go physically look at a property before they put it on the market so they know how to list it. Don't know what happened in this case, but a realtor would be liable if there's an error. And that would be a significant error to list something as a duplex when it was not a duplex. So I believe that the realtor at least had enough information from a visual standpoint to say there were 3 units there. So again, this record is not perfectly clear, but I think there's enough information here that ultimately the board can reach a conclusion about what existed. I also point out Exhibit D is actually a zoning permit issued in 2000. It definitely says 3 units. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. That was for some work that needed to be done or that had done. Exhibit E is a survey that was done in 2015, and that identifies the rear unit as a duplex. So that's what we have, and we do know there are some inconsistencies in the borough records. But there's enough evidence, I think, in this case, to find in favor of the applicant here for this appeal. He bought it in good faith. Visually, it looked like it's a total of 3 units between the front and the back. There are municipal records that support that. And I think for just thinking about it and just asking other people, what I think is one of the most significant facts is that there's no internal staircase connecting the units. I don't know of any single family that has another unit on top that has a kitchen, has a bathroom, has a bedroom, and then has an external staircase, and that's not a separate unit. So I think that, along with the observations of Mr. Singer and Mrs. Singer, that the cabinets are old. This is not a new kitchen other than the appliances. And you can see the photos, unfortunately, are not great, but they show on the upstairs, there is a sink to the left. And granted, it's not a big unit. It's only, 354 square feet?
Yes.
It's a studio. It is a small unit, but nonetheless, it is a unit. And we're more than willing, if somebody has questions and needs more information, to try to get it if you're not satisfied with the proofs. I think this is a common sense argument. It's not a perfect record from the municipal side or our side, but it is a good record for our side, showing a lot of evidence that there have been 3 units here. And the records reflect that the back unit was built either 1950, some say 1960, but either or, and that the front unit was built in the 20s. Again, I would stress, because this struck me when Mr. Singer told me, how can you have a unit on the second floor without an internal staircase to the lower unit? That to me is the strongest argument, the physical condition of the property. And there's one of the exhibits says 3 units for the zoning permit. So that's our case in a nutshell. I know Mr. Little has a report, which I think we have addressed at least some of his questions in our presentation here. Brian, is there anything that you think is important that we haven't discussed from?
No, went over each item. And one thing in Mr. Little's report, so we purchased it after 2018. In September of 2018, we went building permit for sidewalks. He stated in his report that we didn't go for a building permit for sidewalks, so we went in, and in that building permit, the secretary who was there corrected the building permit and wrote down 3 units in there. So I couldn't find it.
Oh, we couldn't find it.
Yeah, it was in the folder, but it's in the records, but I don't think they thought it was relevant to this, so we did not get it. But it's in the records that shows that September of 2018, I applied for permit from the building department. We just found this out today in Mr. Little's report that they didn't have, said we did not apply for a permit for the sidewalk. But in that report, it shows that it was a
Did you post a
3-family.
bond
I posted a bond.
or cash? Did you post cash or?
It was a cash bond. I mean, it was a bond from the previous owner. We had to do the work. We paid the old owner for that bond. We did the work and got our money back. So did all the applications with them. And at that point, so that's 2018, after we purchased it, and nothing was ever said that we had to do anything with the back house, that there was any issues that we had. We didn't think that, because the old owners cleaned up the place and did repairs. July 3rd of 2018, the day we bought it, is the day we moved in. Pretty much it's been cosmetic stuff since, but nothing that, would lead us to believe that the back house wasn't a 2-family.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Washburn, do you want to speak on behalf of the zoning board?
Yes, I have the documents in question that refer to removing the duplex in the back, dated August 11th, 2015, and these were provided in the Oprah request, but were not included in the packet. To the Building Department of the Borough of Beach Haven, we are currently in contract to purchase the above referenced property from the Bradleys. We are aware that the rear house on the property is a non-conforming duplex. Upon closing, we will convert the rear house to a single-family residence. The conversion will include the removal of the second floor kitchen. Please feel free to contact me with any questions. Sincerely, thank you sincerely, Brian Singer and Melissa Singer. That's dated August 11th. I also have dated September 4th, 2015, resale certificate of occupancy certification to the Borough of Beach Haven Zoning Office, 1609 South Bay Avenue, Block 61, Lot 3.01. Brian Singer hereby certifies, I am the contract purchaser of the above property. I am purchasing this property in as is condition. Number 2, I understand I will not be receiving a full resale certificate of occupancy for this property, but will instead be receiving a title transfer only certificate. Number 3, I shall not allow anyone to occupy either building on this property unless and until I receive a certificate of occupancy, which will not occur until I have made sufficient repairs to allow the property to be habitable. I understand that an additional inspection by the Beach Haven Building and Zoning Department will be required to confirm that the property has been properly repaired. Number 4, I understand the Beach Haven zoning officer is relying on this certification in issuing the title only certificate. I certify the above statements to be true to the best of my knowledge and belief, and I understand that if any of the foregoing statements are willfully false, I am subject to punishment. Dated September 4th, 2015, Brian Singer.
We agree with that. It says what it says, but I think it has to be put into the context. In 2015, Mr. Singer, as he testified under oath tonight, and no one's disputed it, that he was told by the zoning officer at the time, Mr. Greer,
He was a building inspector.
No.
building
Greer.
inspector,
No, he was the
Bill
zoning
Greer.
officer.
Okay.
that
Sorry.
and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but this is what I think you said, that you tell him would be helpful to your application
Yes.
if you could agree to make that a single family.
If I raise the property, I would have to convert it back to a single family house.
And why was that?
That's what he said in the zoning, that it had to be converted back to a single family to make it conforming. That's what I was told. And he said to benefit me in my application, state that you would convert it. So he was concerned about me going in, raising this house and leaving it as a duplex. I had no issue with, if I was going to get a grant, I applied for a $120,000 grant for the rear house. If I was going to get that money, I would convert it to a single family house. I did not get the grants and I backed out of the deal in October of 2015.
Yeah. Now, the October 1, 2015 letter does not state that it's non-conforming. It just states you will convert it to a single family to make it then a conforming duplex lot. But were you represented by a lawyer in that matter?
No, I was not.
Did you understand, or do you understand these terms of conforming, non-conforming, and what they mean?
I do not understand, based on the zoning, what not conforming, non-conforming.
And something, just as a matter of law, can be non-conforming and legal if it's grandfathered. Was it your purpose and intent of signing this letter, Brian, really to facilitate getting the house raising grant?
That was the only reason I needed to, for me to be able to afford the property, based on the flood insurance of $14,000, I needed to raise these houses. So I needed to get both houses raised to be able to afford it, to be able to live there. But I needed grant money. I couldn't afford both.
Was it your belief at that time, 2015 or 2017, when you entered into the actual contract to buy, 2018 when you closed, or even today, that duplex was in any way illegal?
No,
Based upon what?
it was, it's been there since 1950. I don't know why it would be illegal. I see the house to the left has a 3-family. Right in that area, there's 3 properties within 200 feet of my house that are 3 families. So I would not see that this would be illegal, what's there.
Moreover, the statement, this will be converted back to a single family structure. You've testified that there's no internal connection. I mean, your opinion, was it ever even a single family?
No, it's definitely not. Ever been a single family? Before I purchased it, I went in there and looked at it. I was told, Bill Greer, that it was a single family structure at one point. He really had a question mark in his documents, in the documents I received, the open request. He has a question if it even was a single family. He goes, I don't know if it was a single family, but if you're going to raise the house, then you have to make it conforming and convert it to a single family. And I had no issue. If they're going to give me the grant money to do that, I would have converted it to a single family.
What did Mr. Greer mean by make it conforming?
He told me that I had to go to a single family.
Because duplexes were printed meaning 2 units, but not 3 units?
I really didn't understand what make it conforming. He just said if I was to raise it, I needed to make it conforming to go to a single family. So
Okay.
I don't know the legal, what I can have there, what I not. I really don't. I still don't know.
To be clear, was it your intention in 2015 when you signed this, was it, again, solely for the purpose of following the zoning officer's direction in order to facilitate getting a house raising grant?
Yeah, Bill Greer was very helpful. He was, we'll say, on my side. He knew the fireman and nurse were kind of priced out of this market. So he was being helpful.
So Brian, this is 2015, and that deal never happened. You entered a contract in 17. If you believed that the house in the back was not a duplex, would it have been reasonable for you to ask for a price reduction because it's less valuable if it's one unit less?
Correct. Didn't,
Did you ask to do that?
no. So
Is that because you thought it was a triplex or 3 units total?
always thought it was 3 units. There was, if you see the place, it's, and like I keep stating, 1950s was built. You look at the pictures, it's 1950s still. We like it that way.
All right, thank you.
If I could interject here for a moment, on the statement that Mr. Singer signed on August 11th, it clearly says in the second sentence, we are aware the rear house on the property is a non-conforming duplex. And also in the email from Joanne Talent that's in the Land Use Board packet, I'm not sure which exhibit it is. I believe it's B. She says in number 3 that the house raising grant initiated in 2007, the client applied for the grant. And then it says number 4, accordingly, your client does not have a valid certificate of occupancy. And furthermore, he has expanded without permits the already non-conforming building in the rear.
Okay, let's take that apart. I'm not sure which, is that the, you said letter
Joanne Talent.
August 11th, is that Joanne's letter or email to me?
August 11th, 2015, no, is Mr. Singer's letter to the borough from 2015 that I read earlier. In the second sentence, he said they're aware the rear house is a non-conforming duplex.
That's this one, but
In
that's,
October 1. I don't know that we have that letter you're referring to. We have the October 1 letter and we have.
No,
the
you don't
September
have
14th.
them. They were in the, that's why I'm here tonight, because they were not included in the packet. They were in the open request.
They were in,
They were provided.
okay.
and
And Mrs. Talon references it in her email on
Okay, we're
December
getting-
13th, 21.
We also got an open request. Brian.
yeah. Can I speak about your first comment about the non-conforming?
Yeah.
That was told to me by Bill Greer that it's a non-conforming use in the back. Put exactly what he told me to write. Non-conforming, if it's non-conforming, then that's what he told me. I do not know, like I said, I saw the properties around. There was a lot of three family units around my area. So,
And as a matter of law, non-conforming does not mean illegal. It just means it's not conforming. It could be grandfathered depending on if it predates the zoning, which is what our argument here is. It goes back to 1950, predates the zoning. And I also note that a duplex is actually permitted in that zone. What was really not conforming was 2 principal structures on the lot, which was then approved by variance when they did the subdivision. And that's noted in Mr. Little's letter report. So there's potential different meanings to what non-conforming means, but Mr. Singer's not a lawyer and was not represented by a lawyer. He was just trying to buy a house and get a grant. That's all he was trying to do.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
yes.
Is Frank on here? I can't, he's not on.
Yeah,
there.
I'm here.
Frank's here.
Yes.
Yep.
So-
I'm here.
Frank, if someone wanted to raise it, it doesn't matter if it was a non-conforming in that zone anyway. If they were raising because of flood issues, they could have raised the front and the back without writing any of those letters previously. If you're raising for flooding, it doesn't matter what you are, you're raising for flooding.
That's correct, but we've had, remember this is really a triplex.
Mhm.
Yeah.
A duplex is permitted, so there's 2 structures. So we have 2 in the back, 1 in the front. Bill Greer was probably suggesting that they drop 1 unit so that the 2 units on the property, even though they were in separate buildings, would be viewed as a permitted duplex, even though the 2 buildings are separate. But in reality, regardless of what was written, what you currently have is 3 units with separate kitchens. And so there could have been an error along the way in some of these documents. And, I know when people try to get grants from the federal government, you try to agree to what you can agree to make the applications more palatable. And in this case, obviously, Mr. Greer suggested to them that if they got rid of one unit, that would help them in their application with to get federal funds. I don't know if that would have made a difference, because realistically, you're trying to get out of the floodway and you're trying to raise the building. So whether it was 2 units or 1 unit, I don't necessarily know if that would have mattered to FEMA in terms of a grant.
So Mr. Little, Frank, I did ask Brian, I said, Brian, why would it matter for the grant to get rid of 1 unit? And he said, Mr. Greer, and you tell him, what did Mr. Greer advise you? And remember, this was a federal grant in 15, was not a municipal grant.
Nothing to do with Borough Beach Haven at the time. That
But why did he think it'd be helpful, or what did he tell you in the context of dropping 1 unit?
he said Beach Haven would be they'd back us in terms of help us out to make it conforming if we went to the 2 units instead of 3. Now we're conforming, and it would be better for us to get the grant.
So you thought Beach Haven, you believe that Beach Haven would support your application to the federal government if you dropped the unit?
Correct. If I went in for a building permit, this is what we discussed, and I had an issue that I have a non-conforming building, I don't think they would have been benefit. It wouldn't have been a benefit to us. So he said, we make him conforming, 2 single-family houses, and then, it gives you a better shot at the grant. And we'll back you. If I went to the zoning and asked to keep it like this, he said that'd be a tough thing to do. If you're getting that, because you have to get a permit to get a house raised, to raise the house. If it was in its current condition and raise it, it wouldn't be beneficial. They were looking to help us out.
I just don't understand. Clearly, Mr. Singer did not he didn't build this. So it was obviously there beforehand. So I don't understand really what the problem is, because it was on the 2005 resolution, it said 2 dwellings instead of 3 dwellings. And in Frank's report in 2005, it said 2 dwellings instead of 3 dwellings. But clearly, Mr. Singer didn't build that 3rd dwelling. If you see pictures of it, I mean, you can see the knotty pine inside. You can see the fixtures. He clearly didn't build it himself, or Mr. Bradley didn't either. So from 2005. So I don't even really understand what are we approving or not approving here? That it was a triplex. Mr. Singer didn't build the triplex. What are we doing?
I think what you have to do in this case, you have to make a decision whether this was a pre-existing triplex. And if you decide that way, you vote in favor of that and it stays a triplex.
What's our standard of review? Since this is an appeal of a zoning board action, what are we supposed to be looking at? What's our standard to overrule an appeal?
Want to answer that, Bob?
Yeah, I'll take care of that.
All right.
The standard review is clear and convincing evidence. Do you believe that this was a pre-existing situation? And like Jamie said, if the facts seem to indicate to you it's a pre-existing condition, did he abandon the pre-existing condition by signing this letter in 2015 when he didn't even own the property?
Mr. Shin,
yes.
I was under the impression this was a preponderance of the evidence for the board, because the board is reviewing this essentially de novo on the record that we have and the evidence. And this board comes to a different conclusion. It just has to be by 1/2 of 1% over 50%, not clear and convincing. That's my belief with this kind of appeal. I've done, well, the equivalent kind of case to this is a non-conforming case where you go to the zoning board, and seek a determination that something is non-conforming. I've done dozens and dozens of those. Not done many appeals like you haven't of the zoning officers. We normally don't get to that point, but just like a court reviewing a planning board's decision, it's not by clear and convincing. It's just by preponderance of the evidence, based upon the facts. So I would respectfully suggest that it is not clear and convincing.
Okay. So is it more likely that this was a pre-existing duplex than that it wasn't?
Based on all the evidence, which granted is a little murky, I grant that, but if all the evidence convinces the board that it's more likely than not that this 2nd floor unit in the 2nd building in the back has existed for a long period of time, I think that's all the board has to find to uphold the appeal, I guess.
When this property came up for sale, I went to look at it. And it was a duplex in the back and a one family in the front. And my wife and I walked through it. We were thinking about purchasing it.
Was that roughly 2015, the first time it came up for sale?
Yep. Yes.
Thank you.
But
You know, I don't think,
does that make it illegal? Does that make it a legal duplex just because someone did it before you bought it?
Well,
no,
it's-
it was
No.
a pre-existing non-conforming use when it was built. And as such, it continues until somebody changes it.
the thing here is-
Somebody can buy a pre-existing non-conforming use and continue to maintain it and keep it. And that's what this gentleman wants to do. Somewhere along the line, he went to the zoning officer, and the zoning officer said, hey, you know, if you're looking for a grant, the borough would love to see you change this thing to a single family in the back, and then your property would have 2 units and would fit the 2-family zone. You know, I don't think you could have forced them to do that. So I think really this is an existing 3-family unit, 2 in the back, 1 in the front.
Yes, that's it.
And I think you basically have to come, I'm not telling you how to vote, but it's pretty apparent to me that that's what we're looking at.
This is Jim Stevens. I have a question for Bob Shin. The 2005 application came in, they subdivided 2 lots. And they flag logged it on the adjacent street. And as part of that application, on the resolution, it talks about 2 single-family dwellings. Do you believe when they went in and tried to reconfigure and do these things, that was one of the conditions of that resolution at that time?
I don't know who the land use attorney, or that was probably zoning board long before land use. We're pretty careful when we do our resolutions. I don't think if it was a condition that he changed it from a duplex to a single family, I think it would have been clearer that that was what was intended. And that would have been part of the negotiations. That would have been part of the preamble and part of the resolution findings.
I can
At least
say that.
at least that's how I do it, and that's how Stu did it before me. We always were careful about what, you know, you've seen my resolutions. What were the findings? What was the decision? And then what's in the resolution by way of whatever agreement the applicant comes to. If it was being deconverted, as it's called now, from 2 to 1, I think it would have been clear in the resolution that that was what was intended.
But
Mr. Shin, I can say that
at the
it's not
time,
referenced.
at the time, the applicant who on that 2005 application was creating that flag lot for a specific reason. Although it doesn't seem like the flag lot's being used, because that's not being used as the driveway at this time, but there must have been something in mind that was for the property to create that flag. Otherwise, why do that? It makes no sense.
Well, going back to what I said, if it was the intention of the applicant, whoever brought that application that many years ago, to deconvert it from 2 to 1, I think the resolution would have specified that the applicant's abandoning the duplex use. You know, it would have been clear that that was the intent. I don't see that was clear when I looked at the resolution.
Okay, is there anybody else on the board that has a comment about this application? If not, I'd like to make a motion to open it to the public. Nope. Can I have a motion to open this application to the public?
I so move, Penny.
Second?
Ken.
All right, if there's anybody in the public domain out there that would like to make a comment about this application, raise your hand and Lauren will. Okay, there's,
All right. Eric Anastasi, if you just state your name, our attorney Bob
raise
Shin will
hand?
swear you in.
No, I don't know how to.
Mr.
My name
Anastasi-
is Eric.
Okay,
I
raise your
resign.
Mr. Anastasi, raise your right hand.
We unmuted.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth?
I do.
Okay, and your name and address.
My name is Eric Anastasi, middle initial D. I'm 1601 South Bay Avenue is my home address.
Okay. Go
Did I
ahead.
miss something?
go
What
ahead,
town?
Eric.
Okay. Okay. As a neighbor, I grew up here. I've been here since 1981. My beach house became my permanent residence, but we're looking at about 40 years. As long as I've been at this home, I remember us making very good friends with the original owners who owned 3 properties around, actually 2 properties around me. They surrounded us. There was you guys discussed the change in property, but the Bradleys were friends of ours. We've never known it anything other than a triplex. My first babysitter was a young woman and her soon-to-be husband who currently own a B&B in Beach Haven. They were law students, and that was my babysitter. I met my wife when she lived in that home when it was a duplex. And unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but I had a great time growing up and seeing that place as a duplex with the front house being the family's. It's just a wonderful part of Old Beach Haven. The family that purchased this, the fact that they're not turning this into what we see normally in Beach Haven, like the rest of my neighborhood, it's a blessing for the block. And there's still a part of our block that has the old school part of Beach Haven, including that bungalow and the duplex. We love the old part of Beach Haven. I've met our neighbors over the past years. They have done nothing but comply with this town and what they've done. I've made friends with them, so a little biased, but honestly, we've got a nice family keeping the old school Beach Haven in Beach Haven. So we love having them as neighbors, and I hope we don't change too much in the south end of town. There's not a whole lot that's the same anymore. So a little bit of heart and a little bit of reasoning, but my input. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else out there that would like to speak to this application?
Theodore Lambert.
Good evening, everybody. This is Jim Lambert using Theodora's computer, 516 North Atlantic Avenue, Beach Haven.
Hold on one second, Jim. I can't see you. There's no picture, so I have to take your word for it.
Yeah, you have to come on visual. Put your video on.
Now, 1 second.
Okay, you're on.
There you go.
Is that better?
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth?
Yes.
Okay, and your name and address for the
Jim Lambert, 516 North Atlantic Avenue, Beach Haven.
Thank you.
I just had a question. I guess this one's for the zoning officer. What precipitated this action tonight? Was there an application to do renovations at the property? Is that why we're even listening here?
I'm happy to speak on that. I'm actually just the assistant to the zoning officer. I'm not the zoning officer. But it came to our attention that the stairway accessing the second floor had been moved and reconfigured and rebuilt without a permit. And that's how this all started, was in an attempt to get a permit for the building that was done and have it properly taken care of.
Yeah, that is correct. Just for context, and Brian can speak, but he was these old steps used to encroach slightly on his neighbor. He was trying to bring it off the encroachment, but did not get permits. So we do need to address that issue. But that is not tonight's issue, but that's what precipitated the review of the file and then the notification.
So if a renovation is done to an existing legal non-conforming use, that requires some kind of board action, does it not?
Well, if you're
I don't know if
asking,
it necessarily- yeah, I mean, if the proposed change is in of itself conforming to the ordinance, it would not need a board action. If, for example, if you were to, well, you can't expand the non-conforming use. There's no question about that without board action. But can you make renovations to maintain it? Yes. Can you make minor renovations? Yes. There's a lot of case law on this. We can go in hours and talk about it. I think in the context of relocating steps, about how much, Jim, did you move them?
The issue was not the relocation, it's that they are in the setback, and
Right.
stairs on a duplex must have engineered plans.
Okay, so to answer your
If it
question.
is a duplex, they must have engineered plans.
All right, Mr. Lambert, to answer your question, if it's in the setback, then yes, those stairs would need a setback variance. But we wanted to address this issue before we address that issue, because if we don't win this issue, we had a whole, different set of situation to deal with. But we do acknowledge we do need to get approval for those stairs.
Okay, my second question, can someone tell me how many off-street parking spaces are provided on the lot?
So you come off the front house, 1609 South Bay Ave, and there's 2 spots there. When they did the flag lot, they made it 10 feet wide by 80 feet long, so there's parking there. So you can put 3 cars in there, so I can have 5 cars in that. That's why that flag lot was created when they did the subdivision, when they subdivided it in 2005.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lambert. Is there anybody else that would like to speak to this application? Nope. All right, can I have a motion to close to the public, please?
I so move, Penny.
Second,
I'll second Bonnie.
all right, guys. Can I have a motion to approve this application or deny it?
Well, let's clarify.
Basically-
Let's clarify that. So
Yeah,
the question here is there a motion to ratify what the zoning official said, that this is an illegal structure? Or is there a motion to find that this was a pre-existing situation, it's a continuation, and therefore a lawful existing condition? So that's how it should be worded. And the only thing I also want to mention, there were a few members came in a little late. If you didn't participate, if you weren't here to hear the whole application, please don't participate in it. But otherwise, let's make sure the motion's clear on how it's worded.
Bob, is it my understanding, if we determine that this is a existing non-conforming use, they still have to come back to repair the stairway?
From what I understand, Jim, there's a couple different issues that came up. Some of them involve CO and other things that aren't in our purview. This one, if it's a setback issue, and Frank will tell you, they have to have plans to show us where the steps are and where they are, just like any other application. If they're changing something outside and it's within a setback, then they have to come in for a variance application.
Because I would like it to be clear that the parking spaces are there and usable, because I think right now the flag lot, from what I can see, is you cannot use that for parking. It's kind of blocked. I'm not sure.
No.
So can you park 3 cars in there today, or does there have to be modifications in able to park those 3 cars?
Would you like Mr. Singer to answer? I know you're in deliberations.
Bonnie, I don't see a problem with that. I think there's a question on the floor and the only person that can answer it, one of the singers, so.
You can still answer. All right.
Mr. Singer, can you
Yes.
park 3 cars today?
You, are we?
I don't know if can you hear us?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Singer, can you park 3 vehicles today on the lot?
Yes, right, you can park 5 vehicles on the lot. Regularly in the summer, right now, there's no need to have, it's just my wife and I in the front bungalow. Down the side, if you're here in the summer, there's 3 cars down that lot. And that's why.
What about the flag lot off of the side street? Does that have space for parking?
Yes, that's what that is. That's the flag
Okay.
lot off there.
All right.
And it does have the sidewalks that are permitted. It's completed, as
Yeah.
stated before.
Yeah, I had that in my letter, but I confirm the sidewalks and the driveway apron are there for the 10-foot flag lot.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's where the parking is.
Any other concerns? Rick, you can't talk. The motion's been closed to the public. Sorry. All right. Can I have a motion to approve or deny this as a pre-existing condition, non-conforming pre-existing condition? Or what was the other one you said, Bob?
Non-conforming condition or you're going to support the zoning official interpretation that it's a non-conforming and should be converted to a single family.
Okay. Everybody got that? Can I have a motion?
Would you like me to run down the voting members? We have Ms. Baxter, Ms. Baumiller, Mr. Stevens, Mr. Pisano, Mrs. Eddles, Mr. Muha, Mrs. Leonard, Mr. Jenna, and Mr. Tankquist.
Okay.
Bob, can you clarify both of those
Sure.
motions one more time?
Sure, it's either a pre-existing, non-conforming but allowed legal use of the property. If it
So
came in
that
before
means
zoning-
it is what it is now, when it was built.
Right, right.
Okay.
That's correct.
Or it's an illegal structure that came in and was converted after zoning, and it's not a legal structure. It's.
Okay.
You heard the testimony.
What was the date of that? Came in after what date?
Frank, the zoning went in.
1979, I think.
79, okay.
I think if that's what was in my letter, right?
Do we have to determine if this three-family was before 1979 or after?
Well,
If it's before zoning, and zoning back then did not allow a triplex, as we're calling this, then it's legal. Or if it's before 1979 and then it's legal. If it came in after zoning and zoning after 1979 said this was not legal, then it's not legal. So I don't know what the ordinances were in 1979. Gotta tell you the truth. You know, whether it was a triplex was allowed back then or not. But if it was before 79, it's moot. If you find that everything that's there now was there then.
I'd like to make a motion that it was an existing non-conforming lot.
So Al, you're making the motion that this is a allowable pre-existing condition.
Correct.
I'll second that.
Ms. Baxter,
Yes.
Mrs. Baumiller,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens,
Yes.
Mr. Pisano,
Yes.
Mrs. Eddles,
Yes.
You got it.
Mr. Muha,
Yes.
Mrs. Lenhard, Mrs. Lenhard? I think she's
looks like
frozen.
she's gone.
We'll go to the next one. Mr. Jenna,
Yes.
Mr. Tankquist,
Yes.
and Mr. Balbo.
Yes.
Wow.
Application approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fix your stairs.
And then next, we have application 2022-06, Atlantic City Electric, 315 Second Street, Block 152, Lot 1 and 2. Currently, the site contains 3 electric regulator units that control the intake and distribution of electricity to this section of the borough. In order to enhance energy service for Atlantic City Electric's customers, the applicant is requesting preliminary and final site plan approval with variance and waiver relief in order to allow the construction of a battery storage system facility. The battery storage project is designed to improve the reliability and quality of electrical service for the residents and seasonal visitors in Beach Haven and Long Beach Island during peak times when customer demand for electricity is highest. The battery storage system will feed power into the local energy grid on demand for delivery to local homes and businesses.
Lauren, before we start, Bonnie, if you don't mind, or I'd like to have her
Just
run through the, I'm sorry.
Popping back in, sorry.
Okay. It's probably a good idea to do another roll call, so everybody who's here now can participate in this one. And then the first 9 obviously vote, but let's do another roll call because a couple of members are here now.
Okay, sure. Ms. Eddles,
Yes, here.
Mr. Herensky, Mrs. Lenhard,
Bonnie's on mute.
Bonnie, you're muted.
My computer just went bad and then I had to run in and plug it in. What did I miss? The last time a motion was made by Mr. Tinquist.
it was approved.
Oh, it was approved? Oh, good.
Mhm.
So
What
let- Have you introduced the next application?
I did introduce the next application. We're just doing a quick roll call to see who just rejoined the meeting.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I'm back up to speed.
Mr. Muha,
Yes.
Mr. Pisano,
Here.
Mr. Stevens,
Yes.
Mrs. Baxter,
Yes.
Mr. Meadow,
Yes.
Mrs. Ballmiller,
Are here.
Mr. Jenna,
Yes.
Here.
Mr. Tinquist,
Here.
Mr. Balbo,
Here.
and Mr. LaFredo.
Good. Is Tom here? I didn't.
He is here.
Oh, good. Okay.
Oh, I feel
All right.
missed.
And you have introduced the application and everybody knows what we're doing?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
let me just take a minute. The last application, everything was already spelled out by way of exhibits. What I'm going to do here, just so that the applicant's attorney knows, the application is dated March 14th, 22. That's going to be A1. A2 will be the Atlantic City Electric Project description. A3 is going to be the plans. There's 16 pages of plans. So if there's testimony as to each page, just reference the page number you're looking at so Frank and I can, and the board can follow. And then A4 is the payment of taxes, list of neighbors. Everything's in order with notices on it. And then A5, I just got this today, Lauren, the viewpoint location, 5 pages that just came in.
Yes.
Some pictures of the property. And then Frank's letter will be B1. And so everybody's aware, Frank's already sworn in on the last application. You're going to continue to tell the truth, Frank. So, okay.
Sure.
Over to the applicant's attorney at this point.
Okay. Who's speaking to this application, Bob?
Good evening, Madam Chair.
Oh.
My name and members of the board, Mr. Shin, Mr. Little. Good evening. My name is Joel Fleischman. I'm the attorney representing Atlantic City Electric this evening on the battery storage project, a project that has been about 2 years in planning, and we're very pleased to be here before you tonight. Thank you for making this meeting available for us tonight. I will just want to introduce the members of our team that are here on the Zoom meeting. And I don't know if Mr. Shen, I don't necessarily intend to call all these people as witnesses. I don't want to scare anybody, but I have a number of people from Atlantic City Electric that are, they have various disciplines and they could speak to questions that might be raised by the board members. So Mr. Shin, can I just ask you, do you want me to just give you their names and then swear them all in, or just swear them? The testimony that I'm planning is only 2 witnesses. Heather Roberts and Carolyn Fagan, our planner engineer.
Let's start with those 2. And then if the board has questions that other people have to answer, we'll swear them in as it comes. Otherwise, it gets too confusing. I think that many people sworn in.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Thank you. Well, who I have with me tonight, though, is Heather Roberts, who is the principal project manager for this project. I have Carolyn Fagan, who is our project engineer and our project planner. Ken Mosca, our senior external affairs specialist. Bill Birch, fire suppression specialist. Yu Kwan, our Atlantic City Electric distribution planner. And Saad Sahad, who's our substation engineer. Mr. Shin, do you want to swear Ms. Fagan and Ms. Roberts now?
Yeah, let me start with Ms. Roberts because I see her first. Ms. Roberts, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth?
Yes.
Okay, and just your business address, state your name and your business address for us, please.
Heather Roberts, 401 Eagle Run Road, Newark, Delaware.
Okay, and do you want to qualify her first, or do you want me to swear in Ms.?
No, Carolyn Fagan would be the one I will be qualifying when it comes her time to testify.
Ms. Fagan, would unmute yourself.
Carolyn, you have to unmute.
There you go. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth?
I do.
Okay, and the same thing, your name and your business address, please.
Sure. Carolyn Fagan, F as in Frank, E-I-G-I-N. I'm with ARH Associates. The address is 215 Bellevue Avenue in Hamilton, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shin. Madam Chair, just a bit of quick housekeeping. I just want, make it clear that we have jurisdiction to proceed tonight. I did in fact publish notice of tonight's hearing in the Asbury Park Press on March 24th, 2022, and sent out notices to all the property owners within 200 feet on March 25th, 2022. So I believe we do have jurisdiction, and I think Board Secretary did say that was appropriately filed.
Fine.
So
Everything's in order. I checked over the notices as well, and that was your A4. Everything's marked as A4 exhibit, and everything's in order with your notices. So you're fine to go ahead.
Excellent. Mr. Shin, thank you very much. Just real quick, I'd like to just give the board a very quick brief overview, and then we'll move right along into Ms. Fagan's professional testimony and Heather Roberts as well. As I indicated, this is the battery storage project, and the site that we're talking about is 315 2nd Street. It is an existing substation. It's been there since the mid-1970s. As you will hear, this project will involve the installation of an elevated energy storage battery system that will supplement the energy grid and will release energy when needed during peak hours. It will store, as you will hear, that the battery stores during the morning hours and then releases when the demand rises. This is going to really provide tremendous reliability and backup for the power delivery system for Beach Haven and other parts of LBI. You'll hear some new site improvements that are going to be proposed. We're going to be doing new fencing, parking area improvements, landscaping, fencing, some site improvements along Bay Avenue to the streetscape. You'll see the brick sidewalks that have been proposed. Substantial landscaping is going to be added along the Bay Avenue side, also along our westerly side with the two adjoining residential lots. You have a proposed 8-foot Palisades fence, which will really surround the interior, and that'll replace an existing 7-foot fence. And then along the Bay Avenue and some of 2nd Street, there will also be a 4-foot chain link fence, brand new. All of this, we'll hear a little bit more from Ms. Fagan when she testifies. Please keep in mind, this is an unmanned facility, and that sort of drives some of the variances. There are a few variances. I'm not going to review them now in the interest of time. We'll move into Ms. Fagan's testimony, and she'll handle all that. But we are requesting, since this is unmanned, there are some variances such as no loading zone and parking space sizes. Some of the variances that flow from that, I think you'll hear, hopefully you'll find are reasonable. They make sense. We've been through the exhibits that we've talked about, and I think just to say that we're here asking for your approval for preliminary and final site plan approval, together with certain C variances and maybe a design waiver or two, to be able to put in this very, very unique, it's really the first of its kind in ACE's service area, this backup battery storage project. So with that, Madam Chair, I'd like to call my first witness, Heather Roberts.
Okay.
Thank you. Heather, can you turn on your camera?
My camera's on.
Oh, okay.
I'm joined
sorry,
twice, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thank you, Heather. I know you've been sworn. Again, just state your name for the record and indicate your position with ACE and how long you've been with ACE, please.
I'm Heather Roberts. I'm a senior project manager, and I've been with Atlantic City Electric since 2015.
And explain to the board how you're involved with the battery storage project.
I am the project manager responsible for seeing the project through execution.
Can you give them some insight into why this is an important project for Atlantic City Electric and for Beach Haven, of course?
Yes, as I step through the importance, I would just like to go through the renderings just to give a little bit of a visual as I walk through the proposed project here. So if you give me a minute, and this is part of the exhibit, where it doesn't look like I'm able to screen share, but
Lauren, can we do that?
If not, the exhibits are available. This is the 5-pager.
Lauren, are they available? Do you have them up?
I do have the plans. I was trying to let her be able to screen share, and it doesn't look like I'm available to have
Screen
her
share.
screen share. Yes, if you want to let me know what exhibit you're displaying, I can pull it up for everybody to see.
Lauren, when we filed, I think it was recently sent to you. I thought it was going to be Exhibit A1, but Mr. Shin relabeled some of them, but it was the aerial and photo simulation It's 5 sheets. I think it
Right.
was sent over on either Thursday or Friday.
I think it's labeled Beach Haven Sim Boards. It's a PDF.
Right.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
we marked that one as A5.
Okay.
That was the
Okay.
last one that came in. I made that the last one.
Yes. I think that's the one that Heather would like to be able to refer to.
That'd be great. Okay. So here we have the aerial view of the lot where we're proposing to install the 1 megawatt, 2 megawatt hour battery. This again is at 315 2nd Street in Beach Haven. The purpose of the battery is to store power at time of low demand to be used when local distribution system on the island is experiencing periods of high demand. This is referred to as peak shaving. So a period of low demand would typically happen somewhere around 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. when the battery would be charged from the grid. And then during high demand, typically around 4 p.m. or 6 p.m. in the evening when people are coming home for the evening, turning on their AC, getting dinner started, we're experiencing the high peak and the battery would discharge onto the grid to support that extra load. This becomes increasingly important, especially as we hit that peak summer heat. So with this battery in place, we'll be able to use it to supplement load within the community if there's an issue to critical substation equipment at a substation that's serving the community. This creates a more decentralized approach, so we get that additional needed capacity without having to be as reliant on the regional transmission system. The project is needed to meet load demand that is forecasted to be surpassed by summer of 2023. So in order to offset that, construction is planned for this fall of 2022 and to be placed in service by spring of 2023. So if you look over here on the left-hand side of this, you'll see each viewpoint, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we have a few views from what it looks like from 2nd Street, as well as the corner of 2nd and Bay Ave. So we'll go to the first viewpoint here. This view is again from 2nd Street going left to right on the rendering. The top is the existing conditions. The bottom half is what's proposed. We are adding the Leyland cypress to provide some screening. You can see that on the very left-hand side. Then we have the parking area here. And this is an unmanned site, so there won't be vehicles here at all times, but only when there is work going on. The vegetation in the middle is going to be removed. The fence has been updated. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the battery storage unit that is just falling below the roof line of the neighboring business there. And if you scroll down to the next viewpoint, this gives a better view of the battery storage unit itself. So top existing, and here's what's proposed. The battery storage unit is often compared to that of a shipping container as far as appearance goes. This is a lot smaller than the footprint of a traditional substation, and it's relatively small in comparison to that of other battery storage projects implemented within other utilities. In addition to the battery unit, there'll be other electrical equipment such as transformers that will be installed outside the container to connect to the grid. And given the flood area, the unit and all associated equipment is installed on an elevated platform. And then on this third rendering, you see the corner from 2nd Street and Bay Ave. You'll notice the 4-foot fence along the perimeter has been updated. The Morrison sign is no longer on the property. And then we're updating the landscaping in front with the Leyland cypress, and you can see the pavers along Bay Avenue as well. And then if you go to the fourth and final rendering, this is just what it looks like from across the street from Bay Avenue. You can see the pavers that have been incorporated as well as the new Leyland cypress and the new fence there as well. So that covers the overall project. The only other thing that I would mention, and Joel had commented on it as well, but battery storage project is the first of its kind in our service territory and serves as an opportunity for grid modernization. But While it's new to our service territory, this technology is implemented within our other Exelon utilities like Baltimore Gas and Electric and ComEd. And we also have projects in motion across Delmarva Power and Pepco. So battery energy storage has been around and operational within the US over the last 15 years or so. So while it is new to Atlantic City Electric, it's not new within the electric utility. And with that, we can turn it back to you, Joel.
Thank you, Heather. Madam Chair, I have no further questions at the moment for Ms. Roberts. And if you'd like,
I have a couple questions. Could I ask her a couple questions? Who maintains this property after you're finished?
Heather?
Within our site property, it would be our own maintenance.
Okay, okay. And are there any other stations like this on the island? Or is this the first?
This is the first on LBI. There are substations on the island itself, but this is the first battery storage unit.
And how long do these battery stations last?
They have a useful life span of about 10 years as far as the battery degradation goes. And then at that point, we do have the ability to swap out the batteries or reevaluate the need at the current site.
Okay. And the parking that you say, well, it's unmanned station, and I noticed there's parking in the back there. So when you're not there, that's going to be open parking for people in town, or are you gating it off or chaining it off? What are you doing about those parking spaces?
That was not our intent to have it open for the public, as we'd like to keep it accessible for our utility workers as needed. But there isn't a current plan to gate it at the moment. I think it would just be signage.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a, oh, go ahead.
If I may, ask a few questions at this point too.
Yes, of this witness, yes.
Okay. From a hazard standpoint, is there any potential hazard from the battery packs?
So from a safety perspective, I mean, safety is always our primary focus, and it's a key element in the design and implementation of any project. But there's a wealth of information on battery storage, and the required safety precautions are being followed. And we are following the established standards to ensure that we're meeting the industry best practices for safety and security. So we do not feel that it is a hazard.
If there was a hazard, what would the potential hazards be?
So worst case scenario for battery storage would be in the lines of a fire. And part of our implementation plan involves working with local leaders and emergency management agencies to familiarize everyone with the characteristics of the facility. Our first line of defense is our design, so that it doesn't get to that point of failure. Our second line of defense is for our monitoring and management system, so that we can detect early on, so we can address issues before they become a failure itself. And then the third would be proper training and understanding from an emergency response procedure for the unlikely event of a fire. But we also have our fire protection SME on the call as well.
Now, would you provide the local fire department with any special equipment?
No special equipment is needed, but we would provide the fire department with training. And through that training, if something happens to be identified that would be additional, we could work with them in that event.
And then my next question, have you looked at any other sites beyond this site here for this battery storage?
This location was chosen based off of the need on the grid, and we thought that the proximity to the local energy grid and the power lines plays a key role in LBI's energy voltage issues. So placing the facility at our existing site of a former substation, we also thought this would minimize the significant impact to the community.
Because to follow up a little bit with Bonnie about parking, I mean, it's kind of a unique location for parking for people in the downtown area, it's probably one of the last opportunities. I mean, do you see with an elevated facility, the possibility of providing parking at this site for the public?
That's not something we have considered.
Yeah.
Would
There's
you-
a lot of,
is it-
if I could, Mr. Stevens, I could tell you, there's several considerations that go. The company usually does not allow any access to their substations. And I would like to add that this already is an existing substation. So that's why they're bringing this technology to this location in addition to the identifying the need on the grid. But allowing access to the general public is a liability issue that is generally frowned upon. Anytime I've ever done the application, that's just not, it's like a non-starter because of the liability. And that's one of the reasons there's an internal fence and an external fence. And that's another reason why one of the variances tonight is the fact that we don't landscape the entire site because we want to see if someone is actually going in there. It's a security issue. So,
Well, with the modern equipment, it's much more compact than everything else. I mean, do you need this whole site? Can this be located in the rear portion of the site and provide some sort of public parking in the front where it would, obviously your site would still be fenced off? I mean, have you looked at ways to benefit the community? I mean,
this
to
is
me-
benefiting the community.
To me,
this is,
well, it's benefiting in certain ways, yes, but to me, all my, time down there, that site's always been an eyesore, and to me, it's going to continue to be an eyesore. It'd be nice if we could have some sort of public-private, utilization of the site.
well, Madam Chair, can we move forward at this point into
Yes, you may.
our engineers who could go in to explain a little bit more about the beautification of the site and what we're proposing.
Okay.
So thank you, Madam Chair. And with that, I'd like to call Carolyn Fagan. And again, Carolyn, you've been sworn. You're a licensed engineer and planner of the state of New Jersey. Is that correct?
Yes, I am.
And you're familiar with the zoning ordinances of the borough of Beach Haven?
Yes, I am.
And you're also familiar with the municipal land use law. Is that correct?
Correct.
Can you give this board a little bit of indication of your educational background?
Sure. I graduated from NJIT with a bachelor's in civil engineering in 1994. I've been doing land development for near 25 years. I got my New Jersey PE license in 2000, and I got my professional planner's license in 2018. And I have testified before many boards in Ocean and Monmouth County and around the state. Stafford Township, Bricktown, Toms River, Jackson, giving both planning and engineering testimony. And I've been at ARH for about a month, so I didn't originally start these plans, but I am taking charge of these plans, and I've signed the set that was submitted to the board that you have before you now.
Madam Chair, I would ask for the board to accept Ms. Fagan as an expert for tonight's
Yes, we
hearing.
accept her.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. May I proceed at this point then?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. So I know you said you didn't prepare, but you're certainly highly familiar with the site plan that's the subject of tonight's hearing. Is that correct?
Yes, I am. I did actually the last round of revisions that went out were under my supervision, and so I'm familiar with them. Yep.
Okay, why don't we start with you again? I know Heather did a great job. Why don't you just identify the site if you want? Do you want those that exhibit A5 back up or?
Yes, that would be great. If we could go back to that A5, that was sheet 1 of A5, the aerial, and I'll just use that to give a little general overview of the location of the property. My screen looks like it's letting me share screen if you wanted me to, but I'm going to just, nope, there we go. Okay. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So as you can see, the site is highlighted in blue, sort of on the center of the screen. There we go. Thank you. Excellent. Okay. It's a corner property located at the intersection of Bay Avenue, which is County Route 607, and 2nd Street. It's located within the business district or the BD zone, and the site contains 0.736 acres or 32,050 square feet. The site is surrounded mostly by retail and residential uses. And again, it is a corner property, so it has 2 frontages. You want me to keep going? I don't know if you just want me to describe that or just keep going, Joel.
You can keep going, Carol. You can,
Sure. Okay.
move-
I'd like to look at the site plan, and I can start going into some of the site improvements if we could do that. We
Yeah,
were
let's-
calling it A2. Oh, you know what? This is your full set of plans? Okay. And I think you said this was your A3, which was the
this
set of
is
plans?
yeah, this has been marked, Mr. Shin indicated, I think that site plan is A3 for tonight's
Sure.
hearing.
Okay, so would you mind getting onto sheet 4 for me, please?
Sure.
And that's the site plan. The overall site plan, and I submitted that as exhibit A2, but the numbers are all out of whack, so, oh, it's gone now.
Is this what you're looking for? Do you see it now?
Yep, well, that works, yeah, it's the same, I just want to, oh, it looks really wacky, some of this looks a little bit weird. Okay, so this is the site plan. Okay, there we go, that one's good, right there is good, thank you. I believe this should be sheet 4. This is the site plan. On the right side, we have Bay Avenue, oops, yep. Which is the east, and on the south side, we have 2nd Street, and that's the south of the property right there. Proposed for the site is, well, I'll explain a little bit more actually. The driveway right now is located on 2nd Street, and that will continue to be the only access into the site. The driveway is currently gravel, and it will continue to remain gravel. We're gonna taper back the corner right as you turn in to the substation. But other than that, we will be remaining gravel for the driveway. Right up at the front, we're proposing parking stalls on the right side of the driveway and a turnaround area on the left side of the driveway. All Atlantic City Electric vehicles are required to back in, so that's the purpose for that turnaround area. They'll pull into the site from 2nd Street. They'll basically turn left and then back into their space on the right side there. So that egress is going to remain, and that will be the only egress. The entire site is also going to receive a stone surfacing. The only vehicles that will be allowed on site, to answer one of your questions, Mr. Stevens, I believe, will be the Atlantic City Electric vehicles for maintenance. There are no public cars or vehicles or people allowed on the site at all. We do have this stall sized at 7 feet by 21 feet, and that will accommodate the Atlantic City Electric vehicles. Maintenance is anticipated to the substation at a frequency of approximately 2 times per week. So again, this isn't a very high traffic generator. It's just an operator coming in and performing some regular maintenance and then leaving the site. There's no sewer and water to the site. There's no trash on the site. Continuing a little bit further, there's no loading zones proposed on the site because the use doesn't require one. Sorry.
Carolyn, could you explain the orientation of the building and why it was put the way it was put? Again, as an enhancement to the community, to the viewer, if you will, to the public.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay. As Heather showed in those photo simulations, the building is located pretty much right in the center of your screen. What you see almost looks like an eye-shaped type dark area there. What it is, it's an 11 by 37 approximately battery energy storage system, which is oriented in a north-south direction. That's so that it's set very far back from Bay Avenue, and we will have the screening up on Bay Avenue so that from a visibility perspective and an aesthetic perspective, it's set pretty far back, about 135 feet from the property line on Bay Avenue. The short side of the equipment is located on 2nd Street, where it is a little bit closer to the right of way. There it's approximately 30 feet. And that's the very narrow side, which you see in one of those photo simulations, which we can get back to later. Although all of this looks dark gray and it looks like that's all a building. It's actually not. Those are platforms and stairs that are just used for accessing the battery energy storage system. Also proposed in this area is the transformer and converter equipment. And then there's going to be new grounding. Over here on the left side, we have some poles that are proposed, grounding rods, grounding grid. So there's some other components to the station. But what you'll ultimately see is a enclosure that's raised on piers. It's all the piers will be raised to elevation 11, by the way. So I believe the flood zone is elevation 9 here, so they will be FEMA compliant. And we tried to orient the building such that the visibility would be at a minimum, no matter which place you're standing. You know, whether you're standing at bay, it's further from you, and that's the longer frontage, I guess. And if you're standing on 2nd Street, that's the smaller side of the building. Okay. As both our attorney and Heather described, we are proposing a good amount of landscaping to provide some screening and buffering. Along the Bay Avenue frontage, we'll be proposing Leland cypress to give a little bit of a screen. And you could see those in this photo simulation. They're going to provide a nice wall so the station won't be visible from Bay Avenue. On the west side of the property, we're proposing the same Leland cypress, which would give a nice buffer to the residential lots that are located to the west of the property. Those are lots 7.01 and 7.02.
And in addition to that, Carolyn, maybe you can point out to the board that we're also, I think in response to Mr. Little's comments, we're going to be installing a vinyl fence as well.
Yes, yep.
Maybe
I was going to talk about the fencing next, and I'll start with that. Thank you. So currently, the rear of lot 7.01 has an existing 6-foot white vinyl fence. It's in pretty decent condition. But lot 702, which is the lot that's closer to 2nd Street, there's a dilapidated fence there. We will be proposing a 6-foot white vinyl fence along the shared property line there in order to provide a more of a screen between that residential use and the site. Might as well continue with the fencing. As has been mentioned before, there's a 4-foot high chain link fence along the frontage of the property on Bay Avenue and up around the corner on 2nd Street. That will be replaced in kind with new 4-foot chain link fence. The remainder of the internal fencing right now is 7-foot chain link with barbed wire on the top, and it has like a greenish screening component to it. It's not slats, but it's like some kind of little material that's falling off. That will all be removed, and this will be replaced with an 8-foot palisade style decorative fence. It'll be black, and everywhere that you see a 7-foot chain link fence, that black 8-foot palisade fence would be installed. So
without barbed wire. I think it's important to note that it's without
Yep.
barbed wire.
No barbed wire. It will be much cleaner looking. And okay, thank you. Let's see. I was going to just mention some site lighting. There are a couple of pole mounted lights and a couple of enclosure mounted lights. Those will just be used. I would like to, if you're going to stop somewhere. Oh, okay, this could work. Hang on a second. Okay, that is, let me see, sheet number 10 of this set, which is exhibit A3. Okay, so that's the enclosure. There'll be a couple of lights that are mounted on there, and then 2 pole mounted lights on the property as well. Those lights would only be operated, you know, on an as needed type basis for emergency situations. They won't be on all the time, so there won't be any, you know, spillage or any glare to the neighboring properties. There's no signage proposed on the, as far as like any type of ground mounted or pole mounted signs. However, there are some state and federal laws for some safety and warning fences, warning signs that need to be adhered to the fences that will be placed on the surrounding fence. I know Heather mentioned that we may put some signs that there's no public parking permitted on the site in the back as well. So that way we don't encourage anybody to try to use that location in the rear of the site.
Carolyn, I know that the borough's ordinance requires a number of streetscape improvements when you're on Bay Avenue in the area that we're in. Can you highlight for the board what we're proposing to do in the right-of-way area? And then also perhaps address a couple of the concepts dealing with the planters and the benches.
Sure, absolutely. Okay, sheet 7 of this set, I don't know if you can either go back to that sheet 7 or it was my exhibit. I think it was going to be A3, which is now maybe A7. It's a little bit of a zoomed in view. Here we go. Thank you. Perfect. Of the sidewalk improvements that we're going to be doing along Bay Avenue, the streetscape. As you can see from the edge of our property, this is all within the right of way. We'll be proposing to remove all the concrete sidewalk. My lights just timed out in my office. Hang on one second. Sorry. We'll be proposing pavers along the sidewalk on Bay Avenue and just wrapping that right around the corner onto 2nd Street. There will be a new ramp at the corner that will be ADA compliant. We're proposing 2 light fixtures that will be located in front of the site. And we have proposed a bench and a planter, but at the suggestion of the borough engineer, we would like to work with the borough manager and actually see if we could locate 2 benches and 2 planters elsewhere in the borough. We don't have a manned facility here, and we don't want to encourage, I don't know what to say, loitering, but we don't really want to encourage sitting and hanging around the facility. So Atlantic City Electric would like to work with the borough manager to move to install 2 planters and 2 benches elsewhere in the borough. And we will, we're not going to be proposing this trash enclosure. That was per the borough engineer's letter, Mr. Little.
Yeah, Madam Chair, just for the board, we're not looking, absolutely not looking to dodge the requirement to put the planters and the benches in, just asking for that consideration, which we think is reasonable, to relocate them elsewhere rather than right here by the substation, this existing substation. So we would look forward to working with the borough and the borough manager and Mr. Little also on where that would be best located. So
Okay, I mean, I agree with the planters, because who's going to take care of the planters? Who's going to order them?
Yep.
Nobody.
Right.
I don't understand why they couldn't have benches for people. I mean, there's an ice cream place right next door, or a
Pizza place.
lobster place. They could come out and sit down. There's very few places for people when they're walking through town, if they get tired, to sit. So I don't have a problem with the benches. The planters, I don't think are needed.
Well, we would certainly be okay with the benches if that's what the board chose, would prefer us,
Yeah,
I
that's
would
just my
defer.
personal opinion. There are not enough places in town for walkers to sit in.
Well, maybe perhaps we could compromise on that and do the one bench closer, let's say, to the other commercial, to further to, let's call that the northern side on Bay, and maybe put another bench somewhere else in the borough. Maybe that's.
Well, I think you've got enough space to put 2 benches, 1 on each end, and you'd be fine. I'm not worrying about people going into the electric station. I don't even think half the people will know it's there by the time you put all those trees in, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I could certainly confer, it's hard when you're on Zoom to confer with your client, but I don't think that would be an issue, and I could, I don't think that's going to stand in the way of us proceeding.
Okay.
And then, so to keep moving forward, I know, I'm sure a lot of people want to get to see the basketball game tonight. I don't want to belabor it. But I would like to ask you, Carolyn, I think you've detailed the site plan quite well. And I'd like you to, there's a number of variances. I indicated originally a lot of the variances sort of flow together because of the nature of this project. Maybe you could walk through the variances that are required, and then maybe elucidate why you feel those variances are justified.
Sure, absolutely. These are listed in Mr. Little's letter, and we're in agreement with all the variances he listed. First of all, the minimum required stall size and the minimum dimensions of a parking stall, somewhat tied together. Required by the borough is 9 by 18 or 162 square feet, And we are proposing 7 foot by 21 foot or 147 square foot total. These can safely handle the Atlantic City Electric vehicles, and we anticipate no public parking on the site. So we do feel that they're for private use only, and that size would be adequate to serve the needs of Atlantic City Electric. I mentioned this earlier, loading zone is not proposed. Again, there are no deliveries to the property, and there's no need at all for a loading zone. It would serve no purpose at all. Required aesthetic finishes for the building walls. This facility, as Heather indicated, it's almost like a a container type look to it. Metal, steel, and aluminum structure, maybe a gray facade, a brownish facade. We have oriented so that it has minimum impact from a visual standpoint, and between the screening with the landscaping and the setbacks that it has, we request variance relief from providing aesthetic finishes. The next couple are regarding landscaping. One, suitably landscaping all areas not utilized for buildings and other improvements, and providing landscaping wherever possible. We do feel that, I know I'm not really on the right plan to show the circulation on the site, but you could see the driveway and the way that we need to be able to maneuver in the site and provide safety and security. We feel that the landscaping that's proposed as a buffer and a screen, thank you, gives a little bit of, we've provided some plantings and we're not in full compliance with the ordinance, of course. There is no irrigation on Atlantic City Electric properties as protocol. So a lot of this winds up dying out. So the less the better. And also we have overhead utilities going through the site, and conflicts with the trees getting, in the way, or it just winds up being problems down the line. Providing a front facade with a recognizable main entry oriented towards Bay Avenue. Obviously, this is really important with a retail type use in this zone when you're up on a main strip like Bay Avenue. But I hope you can understand this is a unique use where we are not trying to attract people to any type of business here. So certainly we're trying to set it away from the street and not make it look very, encourage that foot traffic there. So, and then last is providing the decorative palisade style fence at 8 feet high. It looks like you're permitted to have a fence that up to 10 feet, but it must be chain link. However, we would like to propose the palisades because we feel it's more decorative, and it would, be safe and secure as far as the height being 8 foot. Oh, thank you. There's there's a detail of that in there. So we would like to propose the palisades fence at 8 foot instead of a chain link fence at 8 foot, and take down the chain link fence that's there.
I believe that's all the variances that have been called out. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I think you indicated it earlier, Carolyn, but you've had an opportunity to review Mr. Little's review letter.
Yes, I did.
And you find we have no problem with complying with anything that might be mentioned in there, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, we've applied tonight not only for preliminary and final site plan approval, but we've also applied for C variances under the C2 criteria, the flexible C variance. All of them, I think, comply, or, we're asking them as C2 variances. So as our professional planner, let me ask you to put that hat on.
Sure.
And let's discuss the positive and negative criteria. Would you, in your professional opinion, find that this satisfies the definition of an inherently beneficial use under the municipal land use law
Yes, I do.
as a substation, electrical substation?
Yes, I do.
So is it your understanding that does satisfy as an inherently beneficial use? It satisfies the positive criteria, correct?
That's
For the
correct.
C2. That being said, I'd like you to, again, it's in our report, but maybe you can just cull it down a little bit for the sake of expediency.
Yes.
I think there's a number of purposes that this application satisfies under the MLUL.
Yes,
And
sure.
I think that bolsters our case even more. So if you could just deal with a few of those for the board's edification, if you will.
Sure. I'm in total agreement with everything you said, and just to touch on a few of the purposes of the land use law, it will promote the public health, public safety, and general welfare, which would satisfy municipal land use law purpose A. It will secure safety from electrical system failure, which satisfies municipal land use law purpose B. It provides safe and reliable electricity to the borough, thereby supporting the population densities and contributing to the well-being of persons, neighborhoods, and communities, thereby satisfying municipal land use law purpose E. And lastly, promotes the conservation of open space and energy resources and prevents urban sprawl by ensuring that another lot will not be required for this use by using the existing lot for the substation, thereby satisfying municipal land use law purpose J.
Which in essence addresses Mr. Stevens' earlier comment, why didn't we look for something else? I mean, we have an existing substation.
Absolutely.
It's certainly a purpose of the municipal land use law that we would reuse this.
Yes, absolutely. We'll clean this site up and use this one instead of having to put this again somewhere else within the borough.
Correct. And you've detailed the site improvements and the streetscape improvements and everything that we're doing. In your professional opinion, will the purposes of the municipal land use law be advanced by the various deviations from the Beach Haven land use ordinance that you have outlined? And would the benefits of those deviations substantially outweigh any detriments to the adjacent neighborhood and the borough of Beach Haven if the board were to grant the variances that we requested tonight?
Yes, absolutely.
And we also, of course, have to satisfy the negative criteria. So I need to ask you if you feel that the relief that we're requesting can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without substantially impairing the intent and purpose of the master plan of the borough and the zoning ordinance of the borough. Yes. Do you see any detriments really from this project?
I really don't. I think it's going to clean up the site and be, what may be viewed as an eyesore. I think, one person suggested it's going to look so much cleaner, nicer, just with the new fence alone, the new landscaping. I think that the small battery enclosure is not going to be, cumbersome at all. It's pretty small in nature. It's all FEMA compliant. So as far as flood zone compliance, we're good with that. Beneficial, yes.
And it's going to really enhance reliability, which is, of course, very important to everyone. Just to conclude your testimony, though, I guess in your professional opinion, do you feel that we've presented a case that meets the C2 variance standards and criteria?
Yes, we have.
And do you feel that we meet the requirements for site plan approval tonight?
I believe we do.
Okay. Well, thank you, Carolyn. I don't have any further questions for Carolyn, Madam Chair. We are here. I have Atlantic City Electric reps are here to answer any questions, but that would really conclude our formal presentation at this time.
Okay. All right, thank you. I have a question. This landscaping with these trees aren't going to survive if you don't water them. So once they die, who replaces them? Do you come in and replace them tree after tree until one maybe makes it because of a rainy season? I'm having it's just, initially it looks great. It looks wonderful. But then these trees start dying off. Whose responsibility is it to come in and replace them?
Well, the applicant would be responsible for that, Madam Chair. That's
would
clear.
they do that? I mean, this the way it is now, it hasn't been maintained all these years. I don't know why all of a sudden it's going to happen.
I think as part of the condition of approval, the board could put that in there, but I'm representing to you that the site would be maintained. That is an obligation of the owner of the site. And if the landscaping should die, as you say, if it happens, it happens. And Leland cypresses are, I know you probably have some in your backyard, I have many in mine. They're pretty hardy. So that's why we use them.
They are hardy, but they grow.
That's why we
they
use
can
them as
be
buffer.
pruned. I know all about Leland cypress, but it's Beach Haven is a tough place for trees to survive in that location because of the flooding and the salt water. I can see that happening. I can see them dying. So I just want to know, if they die, are we going to have to wait 6 months or a year before they're replaced?
Madam Chair, as I indicated, I certainly think that could be a condition of approval, that if there is a need to replace any anything that should need to be replaced, that it would be replaced expeditiously.
Yeah. I'm very concerned about the maintenance of this property. With past history, the property, in my mind, has not been very well maintained at all. And now you tell me it's your responsibility to maintain it. And if and when you get approval and go ahead and do this, because this is in the center of town. And I'm sure a lot of us wouldn't even like it in the center of town if there was somewhere else it could be, but the fact is it is. So it's very important that you maintain the site well. That's my personal feeling.
Joel, can I respond?
Yeah,
Can I respond,
absolutely.
Joel, and get sworn in, please?
Ken, you
Sure.
need to be sworn. Mr. Shit, would you swear in Mr. Mosca, please?
Sure. Sir, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth?
I do.
Okay, and your name and your business address for the record?
Sure. My business address, my name is Ken Mosca. My business address is 2542 Fire Road, Egg Harbor Township, New Jersey. The chair asked great questions with regards to maintenance, and I want to clarify that the maintenance has changed groups. It is a fact, a known fact, that we have fallen short for quite some time in the maintenance of that property. The department that was responsible for that maintenance is no longer responsible for that maintenance. That has changed groups. In fact, there's actually two groups that will be addressing, all of our substations when it comes to, maintenance. So I just wanted to let the board know that we recognize in the past there have been issues that have been brought directly to me by Mr. Greer, by the borough manager. We've always tried to address as quick as we could. However, there were times where things really took longer than we really wanted, to maintenance the property when it really needed to be cleaned up. However, as I said, it's changed groups, and I'm very confident that moving forward, the property will be really well maintained.
Thank you.
So
And
quick
this is-
question, the
Right.
trees, they don't say a height to them. So I see that you have really tall trees that you're showing in the rendering. What's the reality of the tree size, height wise, that you're going to buy and put in?
It's a great question. Thank you. Carolyn, can you address what size the Leland cypresses will be?
Yep, the intention is to install them. Typically, these type of trees will be put in at 6 to 8 feet tall, but they grow relatively quickly, on average of 1 to 2 feet or more a year. We size them like this to give an idea what it would look like in 5 years. They won't be installed at this site though, at this size though.
But yeah, I thought that. I just wanted to clarify that because it,
Yeah.
usually
won't be that
you
exact.
say.
Sorry.
And I had a couple more questions. Are there any other substations on Long Beach Island?
Heather indicated earlier that there are other substations on Long Beach Island, but she's probably the witness for that question.
Or Ken might, I think Ken.
Or Ken.
might-
Or Ken's
I know there
actually
is one in Ship Bottom.
Ship Bottom, 9th, yeah, it borders 8th and 9th Street in Ship Bottom.
Okay, and you're not able to put this, these battery packs there?
We are not, and that's a great question. So let me tell you why. Within the last 24 months, we added a third transformer, again, through our resiliency program for the entire island. We added a third transformer to that location. So it's not large enough to accommodate this system.
And does Atlantic City Electric own any other land on the island that they would be able to put these battery?
There's property owned by Atlantic City Electric adjacent to Nardi's. But that's back in the day, there was a cottage, something you call a cottage substation, very small, on that piece of property. Right now, there are 3 regulators on that property to help support Beach Haven. We put those in when we really had some, a lot of voltage issues over a year ago. But that property is undersized and would not be able to accommodate this equipment.
And is it the driveways that are necessary for this equipment? I mean, this is a big site here, and it looks like it's the driveways have to drive around them. Is that a requirement to these substations?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
Well, I'm just trying to understand why the site, the other locations don't have enough room for these.
It's a smaller property. This is a much larger property than the property that's adjacent to Nardi's, located in Long Beach Township. But yeah, this property can accommodate this equipment. The other property cannot.
And
have a question.
is this a temporary fix to a problem that you're having? Like, do you see this as a long-term, like, what's the future of this site? Is this just something that, because you said something about the expectation of this to be 10 years or the lifespan of the equipment is, like, I'm just trying to understand, is this a temporary fix?
That's a great question. That's a great question. So long-term, we are trying to, calculate and forecast the Beach Haven need. Potentially, there could be a full GIS substation there, someday. But for now, this is what we believe the best way to address the voltage issues, in the borough. If and when that day comes that we need to do a GIS substation, we'll continue to address. I have a lot of family that live in the borough. I have numerous family members who live on Iroquois Avenue. They like to use their air conditioning in the summer, and so it's things that we are that we're always looking at. But that's a great question.
Did you not install some temporary generators a few years back?
We did as we were planning this project. And this project has been in the planning. I first started meeting with the borough manager and the borough when Mr. Keeler was the mayor. That's how far back this goes. And yes, for one summer we did have emergency generators on that site as we were planning this project.
That was on the municipal property. The emergency generators?
No, that was on Lancaster Electric property. On this subject property we're discussing tonight.
So I have another question. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, Jim. I thought you were done.
Let Jerry talk first. Jerry, go
I'm sorry.
ahead.
Thanks there, Bonnie. What kind of noise will these battery systems emit from this site? I know batteries are stationary and don't make a lot of noise, but there are ventilation fans and such. Has that been something that is looked at and
it has been looked at? Yeah, that's been studied, but I'm going to defer to either Heather or Carolyn on that question.
Right. Heather, would you like to address the noise? I know we've discussed that and the low impact of the battery storage.
Right. So as mentioned, in general, batteries do have low noise profiles. So under everyday conditions, we don't anticipate that the noise from the batteries will have any impact. As you mentioned, like ventilation would be more of the concern, but we're ensuring that we're complying within the noise code requirements.
And was PV considered as a way to generate power to charge the batteries?
It was part of the consideration for the original design, but it wouldn't support the full battery.
So Ken, Frank Little, question for you. Is the Morrison sign ever coming back or is that permanently gone?
That's permanently gone, Frank. I mean, they chose not to renew. They had an agreement through our real estate group.
Okay.
They chose not to renew. Now they could always come back, Frank, and have that discussion. But as you beautify a property and stuff like that, I don't know if that's something, the company would consider. I don't know.
So is that something the board, I don't know if the board's concerned about that or not. I know the sign was there for years, but I was just curious where it went and whether as a condition of this approval, you ever want to see it there again.
Well,
Morrison.
I mean, that would be illegal. That would really be a legal issue.
That's illegal.
Frank,
That's a
because,
legal issue.
if they chose not to, I don't think we can force them, and it's not showing on our application.
I'm not forcing them to bring the sign back. I'm asking.
We're just not going to allow it.
If they ever want to see the sign allowed back.
Right. Well, if I suppose if they ever wanted to come back and it would have to do an amended site plan application and get get your approval.
I
So
I don't believe,
we-
I'm sorry, Joel, to interrupt you. I don't believe that's their long-term plan, is to have that sign back.
Okay.
Right.
Sorry, we're on Zoom, so it's hard to know when someone's done talking, so I don't mean to interrupt anybody.
I know that. I know that. I'm wondering if we should start raising our own hands.
Yeah, I think we should, because I'd like to ask some questions too.
Okay, Tom, it's your turn. Tom, you're on.
Is this as many batteries as we're going to put on this site? Will this site expand at all, ever?
Heather,
Anyone?
Heather, would you have that answer?
So we had designed this site in mind to add the potential for a second battery storage unit, but at the current time, we don't know that that's the direction that we are headed.
Is it not necessary or just not financially responsible?
It's currently not necessary to have a second battery storage unit on site.
Okay. Second question I have is about safety. They said that you'd be training the local fire service if there's anything. Is there going to be any kind of like halon gas that if there's any fires in there that it automatically puts out stuff so that we have to worry about our volunteers going in there and getting stuck inside? Is the local person, who's the closest person that's going to be responsive from Atlantic City Electric? At time, the trouble trucks take some time because we understand they have to come from different areas. So
Heather,
Right.
this,
The second
this-
part of that
this may-
question.
This may be a good time to have Bill Birch address that with, he's our
Sure.
fire.
I can take the
suppression expert.
first. Sorry, we're talking
Go.
over each other, but
No, go ahead.
just to add, in the unlikely event of a fire, the facility is equipped with automatic detection and suppression systems, as well as pre-piped water systems. So in the event that if first responders are arriving, this will avoid the need for them to enter the enclosure so they can address the potential fire without having to enter that facility.
And we'd be responding from West Creek.
okay. I think you're going to need to have, that's going to have to be chained off to the parking area because people will find their way in there to park.
I agree
Just
with
a matter of
that.
fact.
Yeah.
You may want to extend the 4-foot fence in that section
That whole property.
and put a gate, possibly a sliding gate. It's up to you.
Or charge admission, one or the other.
Heather, would that be acceptable to you, to extend that 4-foot fence to the end on Second?
So the 4-foot fence right now, it doesn't extend. It only goes up to the start of where that 8-foot fence is. That would be bringing it. I think we would have to connect it to the far side of the property and further along Second. It's kind of hard to visualize it without it in front of everyone, but it's something that we could work with to have at least that parking area closed off. Right. So the 4-foot fence stops where the 8-foot fence is closer to the Bay Ave side. And then we could work on some fencing where the 8-foot fence stops here over to the neighboring houses in the back there.
Madam Chair, if I may suggest, could we work with the board engineer on that to his, to putting in a fence there to his satisfaction?
Yes, that's fine. We'll let Frank have that problem to deal with, but I agree with Tom. If you don't have a fence there, people will park there, and who's going to check it?
Police it?
Police it, yeah. I mean, they don't want to have, they got enough going on in the summertime. They don't want to worry
I don't know,
about.
parking tickets are good revenue.
As we're looking at this picture, can I ask a question? This is Jamie.
Sure, Jamie, go ahead.
So I'm just kind of having just a little confusion on, previously you said, that this couldn't be a public parking lot that could, possibly be open, let's say from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. and not overnight. But recently you allowed a 4-foot by 87-foot access agreement on the northern adjacent property. So how is that not a liability as well? So I'm just kind of wondering because, this battery storage project is definitely beneficial to the community, but it's also going to be providing continuous electricity, which is your continuous profit. So I think that maybe reconsider allowing a public parking for a short amount of time which would just be the 2 or 3 main months of the year.
Yeah, I can address that. Again, great question. As far as the access agreement is concerned, the borough approached me with regards to that, and we were able to work that agreement in to help that business. I guess it was a new business coming in. Mr. Peeler was selling the business. So that business needed that space and Frank Little could speak to this as well, to take the trash, recycling out, things like that. So there's going to be a fence there for security. It's not going to be open, but you are correct. We did put an access agreement in there to further discuss the parking issue. Years ago, the borough approached me with regards to, buying a certain portion of the property to have parking. Again, we could not do that, not knowing what the future need of the borough is going to be when it comes to energy. I think you'd be shocked to hear, the numbers of people that access our substations throughout our service territory. Security, and I think Heather started the testimony off by saying, security and safety is our #1 priority. Our substations, do get accessed. People, feel brazen and they want to, go in and see what they can take and possibly sell. So we have to be really careful with what we allow near our properties. I wish there was something we could do. As I said, this dates back to my meetings with Mayor Keeler, where we talked parking. We wish we could assist the borough with that. It's just for safety and security, we just cannot do that. I would hope the board would understand that. As far as putting additional fencing across, I agree with that. I kind of thought that was a direction we would head tonight, because again, that's additional security for us.
Or barbed wire.
I hope that answers your question.
This is Jim Stevens. As far as looking at alternative sites, it really doesn't look like we looked at anything viable. I mean, did you consider some sort of land swap with the borough?
I met with the borough numerous times, and it did not appear the borough had property that could accommodate what we wanted to do. We did meet with a property owner. I don't think I should disclose who it is. That wouldn't be fair. However, they sold their property prior to us making a decision about our site plan and what we were going to put there. So we were in conversations with a property owner on a little bit larger piece. However, they chose to sell the property to another buyer.
And the second part of that, the same question goes to the parking. It's a pretty small little facility on a very large piece of property. Do you realistically need this size property, or can you give up half the property for parking?
We really can't because again, the future need. The borough's growing. We know that. We see the projections, and we will continue to do the proper calculations and projections to see what the future need of the borough is. There may come a time where we need that.
Yeah, the borough's growing, but I think the island's pretty well built out. There's not a whole lot of.
Well, the load. I mean, the construction, sir, that's going on in the borough is just. I'm in the borough a lot. As I said, I got many family members who live in the borough. The construction is all across the island, up and down the island. I'm sure you see it. The smaller homes are disappearing, and much larger homes are being built, and that goes into the load calculation up and down the island. So we really need the property as we evaluate our future needs and the future needs of the borough and supplying safe, reliable service to the borough.
Well, is there ability to do a license agreement similar to the one you did for the access easement for parking for a number of years and with some sort of renewal?
I'm sorry. That's just something we can't consider right now. We really have to be careful what type of access that we provide. Love to be able to do it. It's just when it comes to safety and security, it's just something that's just very difficult. I wish we could. I really do. I've had many conversations over many years with, various borough officials about the parking. I really do wish there was something we could do. And Frank Little knows me for a lot of years, that he knows that if there was something that we could do, we would be doing it.
Thank you very much. Are there any more questions from the board? If not, I'd like to open it up to the public.
I have two questions.
Okay, Penny.
First of all, I saw in one of the renderings, there were all these electrical things above the unit. Is any of that high tension? Do we have any issues with all that electrical stuff coming in with the battery system? Yes, that one. I don't know if that's going to be there still, or is any of that high tension that we need to worry about?
So what you're seeing here is the regulators are on site, and they are part of the proposed condition as well. So they will remain on site, as well as the overhead distribution.
Okay, but nothing really in the high tension line at all?
No.
No. And the second thing I had was, is there going to be any landscaping on 2nd Street?
No, there are no plans for landscaping across 2nd Street.
I think the testimony was we want to leave it open to the view so that it's really more for security rather than beautification on that side. The idea was Bay Avenue, beautify that, but leave open that landscaping along 2nd, just so that the site is always visible.
Okay. All right, that's all. Thank you.
Would I be able to ask a quick question too?
Yes, Nicole.
It's right here, this drawing this rendering or picture with the big trees. What did you just call that with it's been there forever, the tall poles with the 3 white cylinders? What do you call that?
The regulators.
The regulators. Do you see the regulators and the overhead wires that are crossing diagonally on lot 2? Is that something that's always got to stay here too as well? Or just with technology and how things improve, is that like just in the future, what happens with this?
Heather, can I take that one?
Sure.
Yeah, since I'm involved in the conversations with regards to the future, if there were to be a future GIS substation at that location, the regulators would not be necessary.
Right. So in the future, if those regulators aren't necessary, you have this lot 2 really could be something on our main street, correct?
It all depends on the design, whatever the design is for the GIS substation. However, we're not closed off from having that conversation. When the day comes that we are planning, we should sit together and see, we'll share our plan and see if something were to work out. I mean, we shared early concepts of this plan, again, going as far back as Mayor Keeler, and we talked about parking in that front portion of the location, but due to the fact that for now the regulators have to stay there, we just could not accommodate. But we've had a lot of conversations, and look, when the day comes that we have to think about the future and plan the future, we most certainly would sit down and have that parking conversation again.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Is that it for the board, so I can open it to the public? Okay. Can I have a motion to open it to the public comment, please?
I so move, Penny.
Second,
Tom.
Okay. Does anybody in the public have a comment on this application? They're all getting ready to watch the game.
Not to anybody.
Nobody? Nobody has a comment? Well, that was easy. All right, still nobody?
See anybody, Bunny?
Nobody? Okay. Can I have a motion to close it to public comment?
Motion to close, Tom.
Second.
Oh, hi, Bonnie. I'm so sorry. I was trying to unmute. It's Barb Kona. I just have one question really quick. One short question, and it's about the fencing.
All right, well, let me open it just to be, let's open it back up. Another motion to open it up to the public, please.
I'm so sorry. I was trying to raise my hand and it wasn't working.
Don't move, Penny.
Second,
Second,
Jamie.
Tom.
Okay, all right, Barb.
My question is regarding the fencing along Bay Avenue. Why is it that they have to install chain link fencing along Bay Avenue when the other fencing is going to be vinyl fencing?
Good question. Can we get an answer from Heather?
Heather, can you address that? I
Why
could
can't we
explain that.
have the fencing? The question is, why are we having chain link along Bay Avenue and not the other one?
I know.
So we kept it at the same height as the current fencing that is there. It's just a 4-foot height. So you can see over to like the landscaping that will be there. And that was the intent, is just to keep it at the same size rather
But
than
can't you
the
get a
remainder
different
of the
style
property.
fence?
You're asking about a solid vinyl fence, correct? I want to make sure I understand what the question was, right? A solid
I think
vinyl
she's
fence?
asking
Not
about the fence in
necessarily.
the back.
Yeah.
Why can't it
Yeah.
be the same always around?
Oh,
just
okay. The
4
fence in the
feet?
back?
Not,
No, it's the
No.
fencing along
No, she's
Bay
saying-
Avenue. It was my understanding that the streetscape plans were going to do away with chain link fencing when they were doing designs for the downtown area. So I'm wondering why we would have to have chain link fencing along Bay Avenue. It's not nearly as attractive as, a vinyl fence.
Well, we don't want anything solid along there, even though we're going to have the vegetation, because you really need to see through and be able to see if anyone is accessing the property. We do have substation security that drives, to our substations on a periodic basis to, drive around and look. And many of the towns where we have substations, the local police departments do the same. They'll, as they do their driving around the towns, they'll look and things like that. So having a solid fence there, again, it does not support our
I don't
safety
think
and
she's-
security.
I don't think she's worried about a solid fence. She just doesn't like the chain link. And I don't personally understand why you can't put the same fence around the whole property.
Right, the same thing that's on Second Avenue.
Well, can you use a lower fence? Can you
Second
use a
Street.
lower Palisades fence? Did you hear that? Use a lower Palisades fence?
Just
Right.
the same product.
And why can't it go behind the cypress trees? Why does it have to be in front?
That then what you're saying, so that portion of the property would be open, if I understand the question.
But there's nothing there.
well, first of all, I
And-
think the ordinance speaks to a chain link fence, doesn't it, Frank?
Yes.
It actually
That's-
speaks to the fact that it requires a chain link fence. So we're really being consistent. We're actually asking for the variance
my
to be able
note.
to put in the decorative palisades. So, I guess, we have to leave it up to the board to tell us what they want us to do, but we're proposing a fence that's a chain link fence, replacing the one that was there with a brand new one. And we're proposing that the fence would run along the property line, not behind the trees, which is again, another safety issue that we are going to guard against. So
And I'm
Frank?
sorry, just so I'm clear, I was just more or less suggesting, yes, it could be something that is not a stockade fence, something that has spindles or whatever it is, but that was attractive looking for the downtown area. That's all. Thank you.
Ken, let me ask you this. Would you be willing to consider something like, maybe a little bit more decorative, but more of a still chain link perhaps with something decorative? If that exists, I don't know, but.
That
Yeah,
doesn't
absolutely.
exist.
If we need to work with Frank, absolutely. I would just hope the board would understand, the safety and security of the property. I can't stress that enough.
All right, can I have a
willing-
quick
willing to
question,
look at it.
Frank?
Yes.
Can we put an 8-foot fence there?
I'd rather not put an 8-foot fence along Bay Ave. I would rather have
Whatever, a 6-foot fence.
I would
What
rather
about
have
a
like
4-foot palisade to
Yeah,
continue the
4
palisades?
Well, they
and
don't,
just-
right, but they don't act like there is a 4-foot palisades.
No, you can get a 4-foot Palisade fence.
Yeah, you
I
can
think
get
we
that.
should use
Well, then
that.
do that. So it's it's continuity and you have the same
Yeah.
style, a different height.
Let's
Yeah,
use it
that's
on-
what I said.
Let's use
Okay.
it on Bay
First of
Avenue
all,
and on Second
excuse
Street.
me, Let's close this to the public.
All right.
Okay, a motion to close to the public.
Motion to close, Benny.
Thank you. Okay.
Second, Tom.
Should I
Good.
raise my hand? Should I raise
Yes,
my
you can raise your hand, Frank.
So I would suggest we use the 4-foot-high palisade fence on Bay Ave and then also closing off the parking lot.
Perfect.
And keep it consistent and allow the
Yes.
higher fence around the facility.
Same fence around the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yes,
Heather,
sounds good.
Other
Let me
than
just,
height.
Madam Chair, can I just ask project manager if that's acceptable? And it sounds reasonable, but I just need to get
Heather?
clarification. Heather, is that an acceptable change to our application?
That's acceptable. I'm just
Okay.
making notes here.
Yeah, so
of
we
what
would go, Madam Chair,
proposed.
that 4-foot palisades fence along Bay Ave to replace the existing chain link fence that's there, and it would continue along Second, of course, all the way down to meeting with
Right.
the far, western boundary, because we've talked about working with Frank on how to do that anyway.
Right.
Is that what you're
Yeah,
requesting, Madam
just do the
Chair?
same
Sounds good.
fence around the whole property.
Yes.
The Palisades, and I think everybody's happy. That'll
Okay.
look best.
So Bonnie, we have 2 benches now. Do you really want the planner somewhere else in town? I mean, who's going to take?
I
care
would
of it?
just forget the planners. I don't think they need to pay for
Yeah,
the
just the
planners.
2 benches and that's it.
Yeah, nobody, they don't need planners.
And Frank, I see a tree in that rendering, in
Yeah.
that rendering,
No
There's no-
street tree on Bay Avenue. They don't
no
work.
street tree on Bay Avenue.
No. Just the pavers, the 2 lights and the 2 benches.
Correct.
Right.
Now, I'm going to go back to the benches. I've been discussing the benches with the borough, again, going back numerous years. They were in agreement that the benches, do not have to be placed along Bay Avenue. So if I'm understanding the board at this time, you want the benches along Bay Avenue.
Yes.
Correct. The two of them.
2 of them. So I think I've made myself clear. I hear you. I think I've made myself clear about safety and security tonight. So I just want to make sure that I'm on the record with that. And the
All
borough
right,
did
when
recognize.
you keep talking about safety and security, if you're that worried about safety and security, why are you only putting up a 4-foot fence around this property?
Well,
Anybody
there's
can
an
put a
8-foot,
4-foot
then there's an
fence.
8-foot fence. There's an 8-foot
Then there's
fence on the
another
interior.
fence. Yeah, there's an 8-foot
Inside?
fence on the interior. Yes.
Yeah, there's an 8-footer on the
Yes.
inside, Madam
Okay,
Chair.
all right.
And
So then
then
it doesn't matter.
Frank, the street lights, the 2 that are there, you're going to coordinate the exact location. Like, why are they up against the fence when they're not usually up against the properties?
Well, I think we want them back further. I mean,
Okay.
short of putting them back in the middle of the sidewalk, which we don't want to do.
No, I know. I just wanted to get some kind of
Yeah.
consistent, where I'm going.
Yep. No problem.
Okay. Any other comments now?
I just want to, I just
Who's
want to
talking?
clarify what
Jamie?
Mr. Mosca said about the
Mosca.
Mosca. I apologize, Mr. Mosca. You said, can you just clarify for the record that the borough has nothing to do with that 4x87 access agreement? That's between the Peeler and you and Atlantic City Electric. The borough has nothing to do with that.
Well, Frank, do you want to speak to that, Frank?
Well, in terms of what? I mean, in other words, that access easement is for the adjoining business, period. The borough isn't going in there.
But it was
he-
originally
you're right.
stated that the borough contacted you for that access agreement.
That's correct. Yes, that's correct.
I don't know who contacted you, Ken. I mean, originally they proposed that there was a discussion about it at the board meeting, that how are they going to get access?
It's
to the
done.
church?
No, it's done. We provided, it's done. And that's.
That was a private business, though. How would the borough be involved with that?
I think
I
Jamie
thought it was Bill
asking.
Burrows who
I-
did it.
Yeah.
So
I
why?
think I'm trying to answer your question. I understand you're a council member. I know that. So I was approached by borough officials to see if we could agree to an access agreement. They initially wanted like an easement, which our real estate group and our lawyers could not accommodate. So they come up with the access agreement to help that business. So that's, that's how that happened. That's how we were approached. And we did not have a problem with that. We could accommodate without negatively impacting this plan.
Who contacted you from the borough?
I'm not gonna, I don't think I need to put that on the record.
Interesting. Okay. Any more questions from the board?
Yeah, I go back to the, on the elevator pole, there's those three, they're not transformers, but they're regulators.
Yes.
Is there a possibility that they could be moved to a location that's not so obstructive from a visual standpoint?
Heather,
Joel, you
is
want
there
me
anyone on our
to answer
team?
that, Joel?
Yeah, Ken, you can, unless I need to, ask, either Sod or someone else to answer that. But can you answer it, Ken?
Well, yeah, I've been told, and again, Sod might be the more appropriate, person to answer that question, but they're needed to help support this project. Again, depending on what the future is and whatever facility that we may plan for the future, the regulators would not be needed.
I'm not asking that question. I'm assuming they're going to be needed now. Can they be relocated to a different portion of the site?
I'm told they cannot, but if Sod wants to answer that.
Mr. Shin, can we have Saad sworn in, please? Saad, can you unmute yourself and
Oh, yeah, and put your video on too.
put your video on, please?
He's still muted and his video's on. Or off, I'm sorry.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, can you put your camera on too so I can see you?
I'm calling in from my phone, so I'm not going to be able to turn the camera on.
Okay, I'll take your word for it then. Would you please raise your right hand?
Yep.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth?
I do.
Okay, and then your name and your business address.
Sod Sohail. Business address is 5100 Harding Highway, Mays Landing, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Saad, can you just indicate for the record what your position is with Atlantic City Electric?
So I am a substation design engineer. I
And
can answer. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to ask you if you heard Mr. Stevens' question about the regulators.
Yes, I did. I was going to say I can answer that to the best of my abilities, but that does fall into the realm of distribution engineering. The distribution engineer is not on this call at the moment, but basically the voltage regulators are there to support any fluctuations in voltage caused by changes in load during the different times of day. When we install these batteries, the voltage regulators are still going to be needed, and where we put them is dependent on the amount of space that we have on these feeders. With the addition of the battery storage system, we'll be adding more poles to possible locations where we could have moved the regulators. So that creates a problem for us on our site. So at this moment, there is no intention of moving the voltage regulators. However, if that's something we want to pursue, that's a conversation to have with the distribution engineering folk.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I suppose, I mean, the application before you is really not to move those. So whether that could be looked at in the future, possibly, but the application before you for this tonight's site plan, that is not within the purview of that application.
All right, any other questions before I ask for a motion?
Bonnie, my only thing, I think there's been a lot of questions tonight, and I don't think there's been complete answers. I wouldn't mind postponing for a month and see if we can come back with some of these answers.
Like what answers did you not get, Jim?
Well, I like to surely know about the regulators, and there was a little discussion there about other poles going on the site. Are there going to be more poles that are going to be obtrusive to the visual sites? I wouldn't mind, we talked about the fences. I wouldn't mind seeing the solution on that.
I can answer the question about the extra poles, if that's okay.
Yes,
Go
please.
ahead.
The extra poles are going within our fenced-in area. They are to support the feeder coming in and connecting to the battery storage system. So they're inside of our fence line.
Okay. Any more
Which fence
problem-
line?
Pardon, Nicole?
Which fence line? The bigger fence where the battery
Yes.
storage is?
Yes, within the
Yeah.
8-foot fence.
I think there's a real opportunity with those regulators in the front. To Jim's point is my feeling on this.
Well, they should be able to tell us whether they can move them. I mean, if they move them, where would they move them? Is there a safety issue in moving them closer to homes or buildings? I don't know enough about it to, I mean, they've been there forever and I'm sure that's why they left them there.
And
But
they support the application in the site plan as presented. As I said earlier, I think the future would have them not being there when there's a full GIS substation. I think any delay now would negatively impact the borough this summer as the usage, as you know, climbs. The voltage usage climbs. If there's things that you would like us to work on with Frank moving forward, we're happy to do that.
okay, thank you.
I just think this site has been an eyesore for such a long time. I think we can resolve some of that now, maybe not all of it, but that's my, I like to see a solution to the regulators.
Okay. All right, guys. Time to make a decision on what you want to do. Do you want to go with Jim? Or do you want to make a motion to approve this application as presented tonight?
And it's a motion for preliminary and final site plan with the variances that were discussed.
Right.
Should we discuss the conditions just to make sure that we're all aware of what the conditions are?
Yeah, I'm pretty meticulous with my notes, but I sure wouldn't mind you recovering those things for me. So I can,
Mr. Shin, if you'd like me to take a shot at it, I'd be happy to. And then
I'd appreciate that, please.
the
Okay.
conditions as I wrote, and I don't know if you want this to be conditioned, but we did represent that we would be putting 6 to 8 foot tall Leland cypresses in. I don't know if that was an actual condition, but I know Madam Chair was concerned about replacing the landscaping, and we would put a condition in that the applicant would have a continuing maintenance obligation to make sure that any landscaping that dies is immediately replaced on an expeditious basis. We were going to extend the 4-foot fence along Second Ave. At one point, we were talking about just doing it to the parking area, but I think now we're talking about a 4-foot fence that'll be a palisades fence along Bay Avenue and extending down Second Street for the entire property. We're going to eliminate planters. We're no street trees, it's street tree requirement being waived, and we will put 2 benches in. And the fencing, of course, would be to the satisfaction of the board engineer.
Okay.
And I suppose that I normally put in my resolutions as planning board attorney that we would comply with any and all conditions that have been imposed by the engineer's report.
Okay.
That will be in there, yes. Don't worry about it.
One other thing I think maybe I didn't write down as a condition, Mr. Shin, was the 4-foot fence. Well, excuse me, the 6-foot vinyl fence that we're going to put in on the westerly side of the property. It's a white vinyl that was described to match the vinyl fence that's there. We'll extend that along the western property line. That may not have been on the actual site plan, so I would say that could be a condition as well.
And the sign that Morrison's had, that's eliminated. So if they want to put something there, you guys got to come back to us.
Yeah,
their
if they,
revised
yeah, they would have to strike an agreement with Atlantic Electric and the Morrisons, whether, I don't know how that would play out.
Okay.
But I don't know that that's a condition, because obviously we'd have to come back for amended site plan on that.
Right.
Bob, I don't know if they want to put it as a condition that someone gets back to us on the regulators, whether they can or cannot be moved. But I guess later they can work with Frank on it if it can be moved, but just to get an answer. I don't know if that's, it can be a condition.
Ken, is that something, and Heather? Yeah, I don't know. We don't have the-
Absolutely. I think if I'm understanding the question, the board is looking for maybe more detail with regards to the regulators and the possible move, not just for the future, but for this project now, correct? To have that
Correct.
conversation?
Yes.
Okay, so we're not, okay, so just to be clear, it's to have the conversation. We can go back
Correct.
to distribution engineering, who's not on this call, and provide the board detail, correct?
Correct.
I would
Yeah,
suggest we would
Ken, I
supply
think-
it to Mr. Little and to leave it up to his discretion, I would
I
suppose.
think the question on the regulators are, can you move them inside the fenced enclosure, the 8-foot
Yeah.
fence enclosure?
The 8-foot
That's
fence?
the question. That's really.
Okay,
the question.
I'm taking a note. Thanks, Frank.
All right.
And real quick, what does the future look like of this site? Since this is kind of a temporary fix, you named that, I didn't write down what you just said. You called it GI something. I'm sorry.
That's okay. It's a GIS substation, which, let me say this to you, Hequan, or Saad, Heather could probably explain it better than I can.
Like what does
but
one
it's-
look like?
It can look like whatever we want. It could, or again, this dates back to Mayor Keeler. We can put under roof that matches the architecture. Is that the right way? Is that the right term I want now, Frank, for that neighborhood?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
So you could make it look like a residential home,
absolutely.
a larger
Yes,
residential home in that neighborhood, and
That's
put it on
correct.
the interior of a building like that.
That's correct.
Okay.
And the battery storage units would go away?
That's correct.
And where, I think, where would they be? Because you would have to leave the battery storage on the site. Where would you propose that new piece? Or they would go down and then you'd build the new structure?
Yeah, we would remove the battery storage to another location somewhere in our service territory, or, in one of our operations, in one of the back lots or something like that. That's for engineering to figure out. I'm not an engineer.
I think what Nicole's asking is that you'd remove all the current facilities from the site and build a brand new facility. You wouldn't keep the batteries there
Yeah.
while you're building.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct, Frank. Yes, that's
Right.
correct.
And do you think it's fair to say we could see a little bit more, like, I'm kind of with Jim. It's about seeing the real future of this site and maybe taking this to next month's meeting, just trying to understand a little bit more.
As I said, I think if we do wait a month, quite honestly, it really pushes back the project and, and our ability to serve the borough. I think we can work cooperate together, moving forward. We're more than willing to do so. And we have for, quite a number of years that I've been here. So we would be willing to do that.
Madam Chair. may I?
Yes. Yes,
This whole
Tom.
meeting has been contentious about the idea of what they're doing for us, when in fact, this is, let's make you an offer that we can't, we have to accept. We have to, making us an offer we can't refuse. You're going to put it off a year. You're not going to build it for a year. So what difference does a month make in you coming back with the plans that we want to see? Am I wrong?
I'll let Heather, now it's a good question, but I'll let Heather, what you're asking us to do is to change our planning, but I tell you, I'll let Heather answer that, or Carolyn.
You're before a planning board and the land use board. That's why you're here. Because you're not complying.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you don't need us at all. You could just do what you want. So therefore, we're asking you to make concessions, and you sound like you're not willing to do that to work with us. When we just have questions, we want to see how this is going to affect our town. Your plan looks good, but there's some things that we want cleared up.
Well, no, I'm gonna be clear, we're more than willing to sit down. I think we've said that throughout and have conversations with Frank and work with Frank. I think we've said that all along.
Right, and I think that the proposed conditions that we plan on making changes to, I understand that you would like to see them before proceeding, but at least in my opinion, they seem very straightforward to exactly what you would like to see and what changes need to be made. So at least from my perspective, I don't think there would be a lot of variation in between what we've discussed tonight and what the final plan would look like.
So you're saying that 1 month would not change much of what the plan looks like now?
I'm saying that in this month's time, we can continue to work with Frank on the proposed changes along the 4-foot palisade fence or the fence going along 2nd Street, closing off the parking area, removing the planters. All of that, we have no issue proceeding with those proposed conditions, but delaying approval of this could potentially delay the start of construction, which is planned for the fall, and would change our plans. We'd have to, further work through them to hope that we get approval next month.
Hey, Tom, are you looking for, I'm not sure what you're looking for. In other words, are you looking for them to show you what the future substation building will look like on the property?
No, I'm saying that we have a couple of board members that are asking specific questions as to, can the regulators be moved? Yes or no?
Right.
Are they planning to move them? Yes or no? Are they what's the future plans going to look like? Is this a temporary fix?
Right.
There's
We
a
know
whole
it's-
bunch of stuff.
Yeah, we know it's temporary. And it could be temporary for 10 years.
I was
Right.
gonna,
And
I
then
I
it's
was
a
gonna say
question
that too.
of, you
At the
know,
very
I could,
least.
sorry,
Go
I
ahead.
just wanted to try to say something. I certainly don't know much about substation design and the future of this entire site, but if I'm understanding the questions were correct from Tom and I think Nicole and Jim, you are looking to see what the future is gonna have, has in store for this site, but that may not be designed yet. That may still be years down the line of Atlantic City Electric. So for now, they've been doing research on this one for years to get to the point of being ready to propose this battery energy storage system. So I don't know that stopping this from being installed for a small amount of time is going to have an answer. I don't know that we'll have an answer for you within the next month or 2 months about where they may want to be within 2, 3, 5 years or so down the line.
Obviously,
Years worth of
technology.
research got us to this point. So, or not us, because I don't know how to design these, but, got Atlantic City Electric to this point and ready to install something. And it still may be years before they see the ultimate build out of this site as a GIS station.
I think our issue is that this has always been an eyesore, and
Yeah.
you
I
know,
understand. I visited there yesterday and I understand what you're saying, but I think that the improvements that we're proposing now are going to clean this up dramatically. All that landscaping is going to be pulled, the overgrowth will be taken out, the fence will be clean, new stone put down. It's going to look like a brand new corner. All that old landscaping will be pulled out, new screening, the new fence along the rear side to the residential lot. I think it's really going to clean the property up, and I don't know that they, holding this one up for another month or 2 is going to really give you an idea of what this could look like in 5 years or 10 years.
and is this our chance though to get rid of the regulators here?
Well, I don't.
You
Dan, I don't
can't
know much
do that.
about substations. I don't
Can't do
know
it now.
Yeah, I don't know if you
But
could.
Nicole, you need the guy in the other department to make a decision on that, and he's not on this call tonight.
So that was one of the things that they're currently needed as part of this project. The most we could do right now is to see if they could be moved as part of this project, but they would not be removed at this time.
Beautify them in some way.
I don't know if there's something aesthetically you could do to, just leave them where they are, but give them a facelift or something. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
I don't know if there's such a thing that could, just leave them where they are, but paint them or something. I don't know.
How about if we put some lipstick on them?
There you go.
I was gonna.
Make that pig look
All
pretty.
right, guys, we're getting down to the wire here.
One thing that we could consider
Oh, my
is
God.
if the board would so be willing to approve this project tonight, perhaps we could commit to coming back at some point as the plans begin to evolve and do an informal presentation of some point. It seems to me that what Carolyn said makes a lot of sense. This is a project that is really designed to benefit the community immediately. There's a need for it. It's an inherently beneficial use from a legal perspective. It really, like, all the bells and whistles are there. It pushes all those. And it's for the benefit of your community. Now, granted, I've visited the site and I've seen it as well. And it certainly, when I went up there first time with Ken, I said it clearly needs to be improved. And Frank has proposed a lot of wonderful streetscape improvements to the site that we're willing to do. But I think we hear what the board is saying. We hear that you're concerned about the future. We're concerned about the future, but we also are concerned about the present needs. So delaying this in a way I really think it's antithetical to the public good. This is, you have an eyesore right now, which is really going to get beautified. So then we can present, as the plans unfold, some type of informal. We can come in, since this is a permitted use, we can come in on an informal presentation. Right, Robert? We can do that at some point, and we will absolutely agree to look into whether the regulators can be moved. And that can be a condition, but it has to really be determined by our engineers, whether they can be removed. That's so technical. So I don't even know, Frank, would you agree with that, Frank? It really is a technical requirement. And maybe there's something that can be done to beautify it. We hear everything that everybody's saying. We're putting the benches back, we're doing the streetscape, the lighting. I think it's all there. It's all
Bonnie,
there.
Yes, Jim.
or maybe it's best directed to Bob. I don't have an issue with doing a resolution. Next month, we have to memorialize it and have it required that these plans be revised to our comments so that we have an opportunity to see them before the meeting. And also for their engineering to report back about the relocation of these regulators and have a very definitive answer instead of, we're just kind of talking.
Well, the problem, Mr. Stevens, with all due respect on that, the problem with that is tonight, obviously, we would look for a favorable vote. Now that gets memorialized at the May meeting. I understand that. But we wouldn't want the resolution. That would then accomplish nothing if the resolution is held up because for some reason the plans on the relocation don't satisfy you, if you know what I'm saying. I think as Heather said, we have a lot of points that we've reached agreement with that are beautification points.
Well,
but the technical,
yep.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, but the technical specifications on moving something like regulators has to be, it either can or cannot be done. I think it's going to be a fairly black and white question. But I don't want that to be something that would hold up the adoption of the resolution.
Well, unfortunately, that person was not here tonight to answer those questions.
So it either is or isn't, Jim.
Yeah. So and then if you are able to move them in the future,
then you can talk with us about it.
And the proposed battery, just everything that's been developed on the site, what if they can be moved and then they can't be moved because of what we approved on the site plan we saw tonight?
Say that again.
I don't think that'll be an issue. I don't think that'll be an issue, Nicole. Yeah. If they can be moved, they'll move them.
Okay.
I'm sure. But we don't know that until they get back to the engineer.
Okay. That it? Time for a motion. To either approve this application, move it forward, hope the regulators can be moved out of sight. I don't know where they're gonna move them. They don't offend somebody, but unless they're gonna put them back behind the trees, and I don't think those trees are gonna make it anyway. So I think it's all academic. I really do, but that's just my personal feeling and growing things in Beach Haven. Can I have a motion? Somebody?
I would make a motion that we approve this application as long as all those little intricacies that we put in there are in there. And hopefully that they can get back to us about the moving of the regulators.
Okay.
But if they can move them, they can, and we'll work with them on where we're gonna move them. If they can't, they can't. So this still, in my opinion, needs to go forward.
Okay. Can I have a second?
I'll second it.
Who is that?
Al.
Al? Okay, thank you.
Ms.
Same
Baxter?
reasons, Al?
Nope, sorry.
Al, the same reasons?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Ms. Baxter? Nicole?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here.
Oh.
I'm just trying to understand what the motion was really. It's not the motion that, well, Jim didn't say it.
All
He
right,
said it. but
Bob, read the
nothing-
motion to Nicole so she understands.
Sure. There's a motion from Penny, seconded by Al, to approve the application. And with any luck, it's not going to be a condition, but with any luck, they'll come back, hopefully in a month maybe, with the answer to moving the regulator, whether they can move
But
it.
also with all the other little things we
Oh, all-
changed, like the
all those-
fencing,
Right.
you know, all that.
And the
why
attorney gave a nice synopsis. There was one or two.
Right.
The sidewalk is going to be picked up and pavers put down, and ADA compliance. I have all the conditions, so those will all be in our list. And you don't forget, you guys read the resolutions. I get them to you at least a week ahead of time. If I miss something, by all means, chime in and tell me I did miss something.
And why aren't we doing the motion that Jim was trying to say? Because no one.
Well, you have to
Because
vote on
another
this one
motion's
now.
already been made, Nicole.
Okay.
Either
okay.
vote
Well, can
yes or no and move on.
Can we clarify that motion? We're going to see revised plans for next meeting.
That's
And we're going
Bob's.
to have some sort of verbal answer.
If
All the
Wendy wants to amend the resolution or amend the approval for revised plans, she can do that. But right now, the motion is to approve what's been presented with the conditions that have been changed. And there's nothing in there about new plans being drawn up and presented to the board between now and next month. So, I mean,
Mr. Shin, I am certain that our engineer, and Carolyn, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but Madam Chair, we could submit revised plans.
Absolutely.
And we have every intention to do that. We can do that before next meeting, correct, Carolyn?
Absolutely. There's not
And-
much on here at all.
Yeah, I think, Madam Chair, we can certainly, Mr. Stevens, we can address the conditions of the approval with submission of revised plans before next meeting. My only concern, Mr. Shin already espoused it, was that it's not a condition of approval regarding the moving of the regulators. We're going to
Right.
find out if we can or we can't do that, and we will report.
Joel,
Yes.
I can have that by the end of the month to Frank Little. Not the end of the month, I'm sorry, I meant to say the end of the week. Yeah, I can have it by the end of the week to Frank Little with
On the
regards to the
regulator,
regulators.
on the
Yes.
regulators, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
so let me just pin you guys down on the date, because I think we only have 4 weeks between the next meeting. So a lot of times we have 5 weeks, and that's plenty of time. Can you get that to me and Frank and to the board secretary maybe 10 days before our next meeting?
Your next meeting is May
May
2nd?
2nd, yes. So, yeah, I'd like to have enough time for Frank and I and Lauren to get them out to the board so they can see the revised plans. And I might have to tell,
22nd, would
Yeah.
April 22nd
April
work? for you?
and if
Can we s-
possible, even earlier than that too, but I'd like to have it.
Okay, understood.
Yeah.
No
So
later
sub-
than April 22nd.
Right,
Submit revised plans by April 22nd.
right. And that's doable, Carolyn? That's something you can
Yes.
do?
Yes.
Okay.
And Mr. Moscow thinks he might be able to get an answer on the regulator movement by Friday to Mr. Little.
Yeah, and probably before that, Joel.
Okay.
'Cause I'll send a note out tonight to distribution engineering.
And when you send that out, send that to me too, would you please?
Yeah, I would suggest that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Would email be, can we deal with that,
Yes.
Robert, by email so we can keep it moving quickly?
Absolutely, please.
Okay.
Please.
Thank you. All right. We
So
have a
Penny,
motion?
well, hang on. Penny, you want to revise your motion just to add those couple things that we'll have revised plans by April 22nd and
Perfect.
we'll get
Perfect.
okay, thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, Ms. Baxter,
Yes.
Mr. Meadow,
Yes.
Mrs. Ballmiller,
Yes.
Mr. Stevens,
Yes.
Mr. Persano,
Yes.
Mrs. Eddles,
Yes.
Mr. Muha,
We lost him.
Mrs. Leonhard,
Yes.
Mr. Jenna,
Yes.
and Mr. Tinquist.
Yes.
Application approved.
Madam
Thank you.
Chair, thank you very much, members of the board. It's been a long night and I thank you for your excellent questions, insightful, and I'm pleased, I'm happy that we're moving forward and we will get you what you asked for very quickly.
Thank you.
And I thank you for
very
your
much.
patience and may your team win tonight. Whoever you have in the brackets, may your team win.
We can't go home yet. We got one more thing to cover.
Oh,
All right.
all right. Well, I'm sorry
you.
we took so long.
Yeah, so am I.
Thank you for your courtesy, though.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you all. All right, the last thing on the agenda tonight is this ordinance 212-9G3 regarding 2 entrances into each building. I assume when it says each building, does that mean a duplex or what does that mean? Is it a single family? What is this? It's a duplex, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the RB zone, the two-family residential.
Yeah,
district. So-
okay.
And Mr. Brilli raised this with me about a month ago. Apparently, the zoning official is interpreting this, and Frank, I don't know if I didn't know about this ordinance. I don't know if you did, but he's interpreting it. And what happens is, it was Mr. Brilli, he's an architect. He's been designing it without 2 entrances, and now that it's known that you need 2, he asked that we look at it. So I don't know. Craig, are you out there? Mr. Brilli, are you out there? He was going to sit in and discuss it with us. I see an iPad and I see a phone,
Phone number.
but I don't see Mr. Brilli.
I
So
don't
his,
see him on here.
yeah, his concern was this 2 entrance, and it's what it is. I don't know what he wants us to do. It's not like it's under review and we're asking by the borough for comments. That's required with land use changes. This is already existing ordinance, and it says 2 entrances. So Frank, do you have any thoughts on this? Is it something?
Well,
we
I mean,
wanna-
I'm not sure what happened with our prior zoning officer and whether she's already approved some buildings that don't comply with this ordinance. I'm not really sure.
I'm sure. She
Mr.
did
Brearley
approve
came-
one on Pearl Street.
Yeah, I think what happened was he presented maybe plans or talked to the building department and they said, they read the ordinance and it said you have to have 2 entrances, and he questioned what may have been approved previously by our zoning officer who retired. So I don't know the real details. I don't know. I don't have a specific site, but I'm assuming that's what happened here. He's probably designed a lot of these, and I don't know if he's designed them all in Beach Haven or in the township or where, but some of these units, I think, have a single entry. And then once you go into it, then it splits off and you go into 2 different units.
And I think you should have this because I think you need this the way it's worded. And I think it just was probably missed.
I agree with Nicole on this. I think it should stay
Right.
like it is.
So that's fine. So if that's the
For
case.
fire, you know what I mean? Like this is
Yeah,
the
that's
way
exactly
out.
right. Fire.
Yeah. So I mean, at this point, he was asking the question and I guess wanted to present this, or if we didn't agree, he was going to potentially come to the land use board with an application to request relief from this ordinance. But
Tell him not to do that. Tell him to put in two staircases.
yeah, I mean,
Save
I'm
himself
looking at
some
this
money.
and I was kind of surprised because somebody said they've seen a few of these where you can't tell if there's any entrance to each unit. I don't even know if there's one or two.
Frank, doesn't Boca require 2 entrances?
I think so, but I know the new fire subcodes and all. I mean, obviously, he must have designed these before and they meet all the codes. Now, maybe there's a vestibule in the front and one in the back. I don't know. I really haven't seen a plan that I could comment on.
Well,
wish you
there's a duplex on Pearl Street that was built.
Right,
It only has one entrance, the front entrance.
right,
I mean, if there's a fire in the front entrance, you got to jump off the deck.
right.
Both of them. There's
But
only,
is there a second exit out the back or anything? or
no,
just
there's
one?
no exit out the back.
But there's an exit to a deck.
There's an exit to a deck.
I think that you can do.
I don't know. I'm just saying our ordinance requires two entrances to each unit.
Yeah, I think Boca
Mm.
allows you to go out to a deck.
It might, but you need 4 entrances according to this one. You need 2 for each unit, basically. Most of the duplexes now are side by side. I don't think anybody's built one, you know.
Right. This
upper
one
or
is a
lower
side
end.
by side on Pearl Street.
Right, so each unit needs its own entrance and needs a second entrance.
Right, at the back.
Right. Whether
They're
the
gonna take the
entrance is
trash
off, of-
down the front and go out the front door with their trash.
right,
I mean,
I don't know, but I guess if you had a duplex and you had a rear deck, you would have steps coming down from the rear deck and you'd have 2 of those off the back of a duplex.
Right.
I have to say, I haven't seen an actual plan that with a single entrance that I've reviewed or even had been questioned on.
Well, tell him to put 2 staircases in and
I mean, if we're not changing the ordinance, his only option is to come before the board and make an application for a
Right.
variance. All right,
well, how does everybody else feel? I feel that we should keep two entrances, staircases.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Second,
Good.
all right, so I guess, Bob, were you calling him or you want me to call him?
I'll call Chris. I'll give him a call. I'll give him a call tomorrow. It's not a
All right,
problem.
let him know. All right.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you.
Well, we're done.
Yeah, not bad, 5 after
Finished.
9. Not bad.
All right, can I have a motion to adjourn this fun meeting?
motion, Tom.
Second.
Okay, thanks, everybody. We made it through. We plowed
Bye-bye.
through it.
Right.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.